Evening, evening, evening. Welcome back to Beyond the Lane, episode 28. Hope everybody's keeping well. Big up to everybody in the chat. Big up to everybody watching at home. Please get involved with your comments throughout the night. I'll try and get through as many as possible. Now, let's welcome on the guests. So, Dave's making his debut on the show tonight. How are you, Dave? Thank you for jumping on.
Yeah, no, not too bad. Thank you very much for asking me. Hopefully it's hopefully you have a good show, plenty of good discussions and that. Thanks very much for having me, and let's get going.
Yeah, great. Thanks for coming on. And Ian, another debutant on the show tonight. How are you?
Yeah, absolutely. Who says I don't give youth a chance at this club? Yeah, I'm good. I'm struggling with a bit of a cold, but apart from that, yeah, like Dave, really looking forward to some chat. Haven't done a show for a couple of weeks with this, interminable international break. So yeah, looking forward to some chat and some football.
Thank you for jumping on, Ian. And Luke, how are you, man? Well, you've been on the channel, but not the show before. How are you?
Yeah.
Man?
Thanks for having me back, mate. Much appreciated. Yeah, I'm all good. I'm ready to see Spurs again. I think now 2.5 weeks is just too long.
It's been a long time, isn't it, without a game? But plenty going on in the meantime. Lots to talk about. Nigel, how are you, buddy?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm glad football is back this week. It's been a long couple of weeks, and regardless of how bad or good or bad we may be, it's nice to have Spurs back. And yeah, big up Luke, big up Ian, and big up Dave as well. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I had a nice roast dinner tonight, chicken,
Nice.
Yorkshire pudding, stuffing.
Nice.
Yeah, it's giving me the energy for tonight. So yeah, raring to go. Please, people watching, please subscribe to myself, Nigel, Luke, Dave, and Ian. The links will be in the chat. We'll put them out throughout the evening. That'll be much appreciated. Thank you so much. So tonight, guys, look, it's been a bit of a break, isn't it, since the last game? But it's never quiet with Spurs. Never quiet. There's been plenty going on, plenty of reports. It never stops with Spurs, does it? It really doesn't. But look, we have to discuss the Levy financial statement at some point throughout the show. We'll be previewing the Chelsea Spurs game on Thursday. But before we get into all of that, let's just say a few hellos to people in the chat. See who's with us tonight. Let's have a look. Let's just go up now. So we have Two Mark Shows. Cookie, how are you, buddy? Thank you for joining us tonight.
Great.
And his co-host, always co-guy, Mark, the Sheriff. How are you doing, man? Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Mark.
Ryan, evening to you. Thank you for joining us tonight. Big up, Dave. Big up, Luke. Ryan says it's a nice break from Spurs. And that's all we've got at the moment. I'm sure some more people will join us throughout the evening. So let's get stuck in. Now, guys, what stood out for you in the last few weeks? Is there anything that's kind of, maybe it's where you've been thinking, maybe it's some kind of report that you've seen? There's been lots of links with managers. There's been, obviously, Levy, the financial statement came out yesterday. The Spence interview. Let's start off with Dave. What stood out for you in the last kind of 2.5 weeks without Spurs playing?
I mean, look, there's always so much, isn't there? It's a constant cycle when it comes to Tottenham Hotspur. I mean, look, the Jed Spence interview, I was actually quite surprised with a lot of the reaction, that I've seen around, that people didn't like it. I actually think good on him. I think rather than let people make up the story, the narrative of you, he's put out there his side of things, and I think absolutely fair play to him, because it's important to understand that, he was railroaded by Conte and this football club to a certain degree. Conte never wanted him here, which means we should never have brought him in, because you end up with situations like we done to Jed Spence, where we basically killed 2 years of his career. So I think, fair play to him. He's dead right for coming out and speaking. In terms of, look, the financial stuff, I mean, look, I don't agree with what was said in terms of, sustainability and not spending outside their means, but at the end of the day, I think at least now we know what his intentions are moving forward, which I think were maybe unclear. I think, yeah, people had their sort of opinions on it and you could paint a certain narrative with it. But I think, that financial statement comes out and probably clears it up, that we're not going to go out and we're not going to sign your marquee players that I think many Spurs fans sit here and we'd argue we need and that we want, especially we want to go and compete trophies. But what I would say is, he speaks about sustainability and living within your means. I mean, I think, if you did want to go down that route, then you have to do what Liverpool have done. Keep a manager in the dugout. Stop having such high turnover of managers, high turnover of director of footballs, high turnover of, squads that you're creating every 2 years because you're going in different directions. At the end of the day, if you want to live within your means and stuff like that, you look at someone like Liverpool who sort of do that and challenge for trophies. But they have longevity in their squad, when Jurgen Klopp was there, and in their director of football for quite some time. So if we want to try and be successful under this model, then he has to start trusting people. He can't keep hiring and firing people at the first sign of trouble. He has to start trusting the managers. He has to start trusting the director of football and really going back one project. Because the big problem we have at Tottenham Hotspur is not the amount of money we spend. We put up an adequate amount of money. But when you're chopping and changing direction every 2 years, you're making that 100 million that we put up in the summer transfer budget spread over 6-7 positions. We can't keep doing that. If we want to get to a point where we can start using that 100 million and sprinkling it with one world-class player and another player that we can fix a problem with, then you have to keep a manager in charge and let him build a squad. And it's becoming a huge problem at Tottenham Hotspur. And also, I think if you look at the Ange Postecoglou interview, with Up the Sports last night, look, I know a lot of people might look at it, they already have their opinions on Ange Postecoglou. Fair play to the guy. I would be more concerned if he sat there and was oblivious to all the problems, and stuff like that. The fact that he's acknowledged, yes, there are some problems, problems in terms of planning, how we approach this season, recruitment, whatever it may be. But I would argue he's the only one out there taking accountability. Players have had opportunities. They haven't done it. Daniel Levy's had opportunities like the statement the other day. He hasn't done it. He is the only one taking accountability for what's gone on this season. And I think massive credit to him in that regard. And I know a lot of people disagree with me, but that's how I see it.
No, fair enough. Anybody want to add on to anything Dave said?
I'll come in. I sort of agree with Dave, and I sort of don't. I mean, in the first instance, it is a business. And for some reason, when we're talking about football, all rules of business just go out the window, and I don't quite understand why. I mean, what Levy said is we're not going to spend money we don't have. He's not saying we're not going to spend money we do have. And where Dave is 100% right is we have spent a considerable amount of money. Part of the problem, the main part of the problem, is we've spent far, far too much badly, really, really badly. And that's where I think this is where Levy has really let the club down, because for all his intelligence, for all his brilliant business acumen, for his ability, I know Mark, I've been on shows with Mark plenty of times about the stadium, etc. I mean, if you read the annual report and what have you, he's saying at the moment the stadium and the events are subsidising the football side at the moment, which hasn't brought in the money from gate receipts and from European competition, etc. But where Levy has been an absolute failure is, and this is where what Dave was alluding to, is this abject failure to have some sort of consistency of policy. And we're going to have this with Ange. I'm sure we're going to be talking about this with Ange. This wash, rinse, repeat with managers time after time, and then wonder why you've got no consistency. So you've got a squad in a lot of ways that was bought by Conte and Paratici to play 3-5-2, but what you've got is Udogie and Porro, who in my view are far better wing backs than they would be full backs, the same with Spence, playing in roles that aren't particularly familiar for them. All right, yeah, you blame Ange because he's not brought in a six, because he doesn't want to play with a six, and then wonders why we constantly pass through, and there's a gap between midfield and defence week in, week out, and we often get punished for it. But Levy is the classic bad micromanager. You know, you know what it's like. You guys all work. If you've got someone breathing down your neck. What are you doing here? What are you doing there? Let's talk about this. Well, I'm not sure about that. Do it this way. And you can't function that way. And I think the whole club has been run that way. And if only Levy had the ability, and I think if you're a micromanager, you're a micromanager, to have appointed a director of football to run the football side with a budget and left them to it, we might have been far, far more successful. But whether we get new investment, I think will hopefully come. I'm not convinced it'll come, because I'm not convinced Levy will sell at a price that anybody will pay. But that will increase the amount of money available. But any idiot can squander money on rubbish players, and by God, we've become experts at it. The secret is we need to buy smarter. We need to have a manager who, whether it's Ange or somebody else, who is properly backed, not only in terms of finance, but in terms of other resource, time in particular, to build a team. The great teams, you remember. I mean, going back even to, you can go back from Matt Busby's Man United, Don Revie's Leeds. They came out of out the old second division. Arsenal under Wenger, Ferguson at Manchester United, all got time, all got backed, and were all ultimately, they were rewarded for giving a manager the time. 18 months FC, it can't work. It can't work.
No, some great points, Dave and Ian. Thank you. Look, I'm sure we're going to come back to a number of those points throughout the show. Luke, what's kind of stood out for you in the last 2.5 weeks? Is it Paratici links? Is it links to some young players again, as always with Spurs? Or is there anything stood out for you?
It's international week, isn't it? So the stories run wild. But I think that most of the targets that we seem to be going for seem to be of the 19-year-olds, that sort of area, when every fan is saying that we need to get more experience, whether it's with or without Ange. It doesn't make a difference. We've got such a young team that we need some experienced people around these young players. I think the Spence interview, I completely agree with Dave. Like I was surprised that there was so much backlash. It's like with every fan base, but we want players to be more open, to hear about them more, to understand them more, to understand what their personality is. They come out and do interviews, and then they get slated for doing interviews. I don't really. I can see both sides, but I feel like you can't have it both ways. You either want to be closer to the manager, to the players, and know more about them, or you don't want them to do any of that sort of stuff. So I feel like some of the stuff that he said was there's quite a confidence there. Obviously, it's quite damning on the club. It was obviously you would hope that it wasn't played out in public behind the scenes the same, and that seems to be exactly what it was from what he said. He had one conversation with Conte, and nothing he done was ever going to impress him. So you shouldn't really be bringing in that sort of manager if you want to start bringing in young players. That's a fact. But I think that the main problem for me is that it's like a scattergun approach. Even the managers that we're looking at now, there doesn't seem to be a clear plan. That was one of the first things Dave said, was we've got an understanding of what they're going and how they're going about things. Whereas with all these managers, they all play different styles, they play different systems. So people say quite regularly, Ange is playing players all out of position, and that's because he's got a certain way of playing, and then we're bringing in players that don't fit that, and then we're bringing in a manager that don't fit, and we're constantly doing that. So I completely agree. I think the squad's kind of geared up to play 3 at the back, 5 at the back, whatever you want to call, wing backs there, and then we bring in a manager that plays 4, and then we're now linked with your kind of Marco Silvas and your Franks potentially do play 5, but then you've also got Areola who plays 4, and it just seems to be a bit of a scattergun approach. No one really knows what's going on.
No, it does. It's so much, isn't there, going on behind the scenes? What's true, what's not? Who knows? We don't know, do we? We're all second guessing. Nigel, what stood out for you in the last 2.5 weeks? What was it? I know you've enjoyed the break.
Oh yeah, it's been lovely. But just going on by what people said, I really like the Spence interview, actually. I think he's got a bit of arrogance about him, and I like that. I think we need a few more players with his attitude that literally, like he said, Mo Salah, who's he? It's almost like I'll play against anyone, and I like that. I think we need a few more players like that. And as for Levy, obviously you know my feelings on him, but I think a lot of what's been said is bang on. We have spent money. It's the recruitment that has been woeful for Spurs over the years, and for me, that's what's got to improve. And obviously, you know how I feel about the manager. I'm not happy with Ange, but I do feel a little bit sorry for the fact that it doesn't seem to be only him we change or a manager we change every 18 months, 2 years. It seems to be the whole club, whether it be director of football, whether it be the whole coaching staff, the doctors, the medics, even the bloody cleaners. We just seem to change everything. Why can't we just keep a base and go from now? That's what I don't understand.
No, good points, Nigel. Very good points. There's so much, like the whole Paratici thing, like, a lot of people like to big him up. They call him the Don, don't they? Was it the Don? I mean, he was okay. Don't get me wrong. He made some good signings, and then he made some dud signings. Is he better than Lange? You could compare the signings, maybe. But I don't know, guys. I don't know if there's any truth in it. I mean, he seems like he's going to be going to AC Milan, so that's still then very soon. I think there was something today, wasn't there, that came out that it's very close now. So, yeah, it's hard to know what to believe. So, look, let's get into some questions and get us all talking about. First, we're going to a few questions around Ange, and then we'll have some questions.
Just quickly before you do that, can I just come back on the Paratici, because I was the one out there, calling him the Don and stuff like that. But the more, people that
it's not a dig at you, Dave. This is not
I know that. But people that tune in and watch me, I'll always try and give players a nickname and stuff like that. It's just this, and people around the club nicknames and stuff. That's just the type of guy I am. There's many people that slated for me have since said to me they want him back at this football club. I mean, you look at the recruitment underneath him and where we were recruiting from compared to Johan Lang. It's absolute night and day, Johan Lang, the only bar Bergvall and Gray, which I think fair play to them, they're shining. But it's not a good indictment of your recruitment or your football club if 2 18-year-old teenagers who've never played Premier League before are the ones that are shining in your team. But at the end of the day, he was recruiting the likes of your Romero's, your Van de Vens, and people like that. This guy Johan Lang, honestly, he can barely get people into the room to negotiate. We have to get Ange Postecoglou to make a phone call to get Matisse Tell in here and stuff like that after him flying out to Munich and stuff like that. Not only that, but one thing Paratici doesn't get credit for. A lot of the players that won at under 17, under 18, and under 21 level, notoriously before that, they were walking away from this football club. He got the majority and the best ones to sign on the dotted line. He changed he put in the whole recruitment system, in terms of, he spoke about when he came in, how out of date it was, how out of touch it was, and he's changed that. He's tried to put structures in place. There's a lot more he's done than just player recruitment that he doesn't get enough credit for, that he actually should. And under him, I would argue, we were starting to head in the right direction. But then when Johan Lang's come in here, the recruitment has completely sent us backwards. No, and I think that's half your problem at Tottenham Hotspur. Like, the thing is, we can all sit here and moan about Ange Postecoglou. Everyone moaned about Conte, Jose Mourinho, two of the greatest managers that ever graced the game, who have won trophies everywhere else. Chased out this football club because fans weren't having them. Nuno lasted in this football club, 3-4 months? Look what he's doing at Nottingham Forest now. The reality is, we don't hire bad managers, but we don't match the recruitment up with them. You bring in Jose Mourinho, you give him Ryan Sessegnon and Joe Rodon. He doesn't even know. He probably didn't even know who they were when we gave him them names that we were going to bring him in. Underneath Antonio Conte, again, you're bringing in, like, someone said to me the other day, but we've tried to win now approach. Yeah, in terms of bringing in the managers, that's the sort of managers you should be bringing in. But you're not matching it up with the recruitment. You're bringing in managers that know how to win and have won with experienced squads, experienced players and stuff like that. We're bringing them into Tottenham and we're going to make it work with a bunch of teenagers. It's not fair on the managers. We can't keep doing that to them. If we want this club to move forward, you match your manager up with the recruitment. At Tottenham, the amount of times I hear Spurs fans going, well, we're never going to have world-class managers. The manager has to make it work. Okay, but we're never going to win trophies like that. At the end of the day, teams that go on and win things, that we all revere different teams here over different spans for different reasons. But the reality is, not only did they have good managers, they had good squads. And at Tottenham Hotspur, we seem to think we can pull off a Leicester, go and sign mediocre recruitment all over the world, bring them together, form a team and go on and win a league title, go on and compete. The reality is, I've seen one in my lifetime, and that was Leicester in my 33 years on this planet. There has to be recognition, and it's well within the fan base. The recruitment has to be good for a manager. We can't keep going. We know we've got a bang average squad. We didn't rate the recruitment we've done this summer. But you as a manager still have to go and meet my ambition and win a trophy and compete with the likes of your Cities, your Arsenals, your Liverpools and stuff like that. And it's not fair on the manager. You're asking him to make up that quality, that 75% in quality difference just by being a man manager or by doing this on a training pitch, doing that on a training pitch. At the end of the day, if we want to win trophies, you've got to go and buy the players to be able to do that. And we put the managers in an unfair position. The reality is, people could sit here and say, Postecoglou, he's this, he's that, and everything else. In the same breath, them same people are calling for Iraola. They berate Postecoglou about his CV. He's only won at Celtic. Look who Iraola's managed before he came to Bournemouth. You know, you look at the recruitment that Bournemouth have made, your likes of your Carquez, your Evan Nilssons, players from across Europe with experience. And look what we've recruited. We are setting the managers up at Tottenham for failure, and it can't keep continuing. Despite what people think of Ange, the reality is people have the same shit about Nuno. Look what he's gone on and done now. And I'm telling you now, Ange will be the next guy to walk out of here and go on somewhere else and do something that we're sitting here jealous of while we're sitting here in the same demise.
Yeah, passionate rant, Dave. That was fair enough. Fair enough. So look, let's break this Ange Postecoglou down a bit then, because I get your point, Dave. I know the recruitment's not been good enough, but I don't think Ange has been good enough. So let's get through some questions and let's break it down. So let's get off with the first one and see where this takes us. Here we go. So, and Luke can start off with this one. Do you believe Ange is capable of adapting his philosophy if he continues to fail, or is he just too stubborn? And we can all answer it after.
I think it depends on what you consider his philosophy. I mean, he's not gonna go back on everything. He wants to play front forward, pressing football. That's what he's going to do. He's going to push people forward. If we're in a situation, let's use Conte as an example, we're 0-0 at AC Milan, we need a goal. He ain't going to sit back. He ain't going to try and nick one. He's going to go for it, and he's never going to change that. And what's really strange is that I'm not saying everyone agreed with his appointment, but that's who we brought in. And now he's here, and we're saying, why is he not going and doing something completely different? Well, why would you? That's not how you. That's what he does. He does that. He has made some adjustments. Should he have made more? Has the adjustments been? Have they been game changing? Obviously not. The fact that he doesn't play with a defensive minded player is a concern to me. But there isn't the wing backs. When, for instance, the inverted wing backs, they used to be a 10s. In the first year, they were 10s. There was literally 4 people behind a striker. That doesn't happen anymore. There's normally one inverted. The other one normally sits further back. So I think he has made some changes. I think he has adjusted the system. It still hasn't quite met, but I do think that the injuries have been a big part of that, especially when you're just asking young players to go out and churn out games after game. I think that's a bit difficult. I think if he had a squad of depth, if we had a squad that's he got us 5th, I think it's forgotten about so quickly and disregarded so quickly that he got us 5th when we didn't have that Europa League. So. Yeah. I think he can change, and I think that we will get it. We'll get it right if we get the players in that he needs.
Fair enough.
How far?
Ian? Oh, sorry, Dave. Go for it.
I was going to say, how far do we want him to change, though? Change to a point where he's unrecognizable, and it's not the guy that we brought in here for what he's produced at other clubs. At the end of the day, I get, look, whether people like to admit or not, they ask the same of Conte, the same of Jose Mourinho to a degree. You need to adapt. What are they adapting to? Tottenham's losing ways? I mean, at some point, these guys are the winners. They know how to win. They're not as clueless or as idiots as people like to make them out to be. You don't win trophies at any level if you're clueless or you're an idiot. But at the end of the day, again, it comes down to bringing in the right players for what he needs. And if you do that, you will start seeing what the manager is known for everywhere else. We've had Jose and Conte here, known for some of the best defensive systems ever to grace the game. We were leaking goals left, right, and centre underneath them. The reality is we're bringing in managers, and we've got a squad that just can't do what these guys are asking them to do. And that's more of a Tottenham problem than a manager problem. Everyone goes on about Iraola. He lost a 2-0 lead against what people say is the worst Tottenham team ever. So shit. He doesn't sit back and see out results the way people do. And I'm not being funny, but people go on like the way Postecoglou is playing is an anomaly. Most football managers off the ranks now are playing with the same principles, playing out from the back, pressing from the front, seeing defenses that are, attack is the best form of defense. Most managers are like that in world football. That's the way football is going. But it all comes down to the players that you give them to make it work. If we're giving them, teenagers and stuff like that, inexperienced players, you're going to see shit decisions being made on the pitch like we've seen, regardless of what the manager's asking them to do during the week or what the tactical setup was. If you're playing young lads out there, they're going to make mistakes if they're not of a certain experience of a certain level. And at some point, we can keep sitting here and asking the manager to adapt to our ways. But you're never really going to win much like that. You look at most managers that go on and win trophies. They have their way of playing, whether it's attacking or whether it's defensive. They have their way of playing, and the team plays that way. We're basically asking our manager to adapt to every single game and every situation. There's only so much a manager can do at the football club. The rest of it comes down to quality of players that you've got to operate with. We're getting to the point where we're asking him to go away from what's brought him success everywhere else, that's brought him to Tottenham. We're asking him to almost become a guy that's unrecognizable and not what we hired him for in the first place. I can't keep that.
But Dave, we've had so many injuries, right? He should have adapted then, I think, because you can't keep losing that amount of games. You can't. It's not acceptable. Any good manager can adapt, and I don't think we've seen enough of it, especially in that period of injuries.
Well, we say that, but Pep Guardiola didn't adapt. They just went and bought players. Jurgen Klopp last season didn't adapt. The reality is, when you've got that amount of injuries, it doesn't really matter what adaptations you make. You're going to suffer. Man City are way off their standards this year to what they usually set. Why? It's not because Guardiola is useless. It's because, they're
still up there, though, aren't they? That's the difference. Man City
they're still up there to the fourth, but let's still look at the caliber of players he's operating with compared to Ange Postecoglou. It's absolute night and day. You can't sit there and tell me you wouldn't want Man City squad right now or the squad that he's had this season over this current Tottenham team. Of course you would. But at the end of the day, they're way off their usual standards. And it's not because Guardiola's an idiot. It's because of the injuries that's took its toll. Last season under Eddie Howe, Newcastle dropped off from what they were the season before because of injuries. Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp the last season, again, because of injuries. There's only so much.
Dave, it's not as bad. It's not as bad. All of those teams, even when you mentioned Conte and Mourinho, even though we were conceding goals and dropping points, he did keep us, those managers did keep us a level in that league that we were in and around Europe. The problem with this season with Ange, we've dropped so far away.
Yeah, but the big thing
is, a month ago, go on, Dave, go.
But the big thing is, though, Dan, they had prime Harry Kane, the world's greatest goal scorer in world football, who puts points on the board, and they had a prime son. Postecoglou's the first manager to be without Harry Kane, who, when we sold him, alone with his goals, put 22 points on that board that season. You take Harry Kane out, and the amount of winners and equalisers he got, and then points away, I think you'll find they would be in and around a similar position. Son as well. And we haven't replaced them adequately. And that's something that no one wants to talk about. It's not just as simple as weighing him up to other managers. Take into context that we sold the world's best striker, replaced him with relegation fodder that we've picked up from around the relegation zone. There's more context to it than just Postecoglou not being able to handle the situation.
And just spent a lot of money.
Harry Kane. He doesn't have a leader within the team that other managers had that they could rely on.
Yeah, but Ange has spent money, hasn't he? He has bought in players. He's had 4 transfer windows. I know we can question the signings and the level, but Dave, there must be something for you to think about that he could have done something more or done something different with them group of players. And like you said, it's not so clear cut in every kind of angle. Ange has to be accountable for where we are.
Yeah, look, I mean, Conte was accountable, Nuno was accountable, Jose Mourinho was accountable. Where did it get us? We're still in the same position now. We can keep holding all these managers accountable and looking for someone to take accountability, but we're looking in the wrong direction. The accountability starts with the ownership, backing the manager properly, giving them a chance to succeed and stuff like that. Look, could Postecoglou have been smarter with the media instead of being sarky and used it like Jurgen Klopp has done at Liverpool and other top managers do? Yes, of course he could. Should he be bigger than taking a pop at every fan that has an opinion on him? Yes, of course he should. But at the end of the day, what I'm not going to do is get into the realms where I see people blaming him for absolutely everything that goes on in this football club. I'm not going to do that, because the reality is, if people do want Postecoglou done and whatever guy you want in the door next, I'm pretty sure everyone will want to give him a fair chance to succeed. And if we want to do that, then you have to point out where the club's fault lies. You know, we sit here and we blame Postecoglou for every injury that we've had this season. The reality is, go back and look underneath Antonio Conte. There was a large period of the last season where he had academy kids filling out the bench. No one wants to talk about it because it doesn't suit their narrative. So that strikes to me, there's a problem within the physio department, which has since come out with a load of players. But before that, before they came out, everyone blamed Ange Postecoglou. And if we want to succeed at Tottenham, and this is my point right now under Postecoglou, I will put blame on what I think is Postecoglou's fault, but I'm not going to fall into the trap of blaming him for everything because I don't think it serves a purpose moving forward. What I will do is I will point out what I think is a club problem, whether people like it or not, whether they think it's back in Ange Postecoglou or not, so that when we move forward, we can start ironing out some of these problems and stop pinning everything on the football manager. Because the reality is that's what we've done. They've all been accountable. Where are we?
Dave, can I put a question to you? Let's say we get investment and there's £200 million worth of net spend. We can bring in, assuming nobody leaves that we're worried about leaving, 4 £50 million players. Would you be confident that Ange Postecoglou would turn that into a title challenging team, a cup challenging team? Because I'll be honest with you, you know I'm a big Ange fan from living in Glasgow and watching Celtic and what have you. I was over the moon when he was appointed. I don't have that confidence that he is tactically astute enough where he's up against coaches and players who are at least as good as the players he's got, if not better, to adapt his game and to produce a style of football that is as attractive as it is winning. I mean, one of the things we talk about Ange Ball, we don't see Ange Ball. What we are seeing at Tottenham bears no resemblance to the high-octane, fast-attacking football where the ball went from back to front really quickly, was out to wide men, was delivered into the box at lightning pace. Now, we've seen Spurs score that goal with, the number of tap-ins, for example, Brennan Johnson has had and what have you. I'm not disparaging Johnson at all. We're saying tap-ins where the ball has gone wide, it's gone out down the left side, and the ball's been fired across the box. That's Ange Ball. I mean, I've said this on a couple of shows in the past. The time that I thought we really saw Ange Ball at his best was that first 20 minutes in November 23 against Chelsea, where we were threatening to absolutely play them off the park. A couple of missed chances, a narrow goal disallowed. I mean, that was Pochettino's Chelsea. But, other circumstances, we might have been 2-3 up. Romero doesn't do that stupid tackle and get himself sent off and concede a penalty. We win that game 4-5-0, and the game's changed. But it's fine margins in football. But as I say, the question is, I'm not convinced, and I want to be convinced because I'm sick of us constantly changing manager, changing direction, and this is to leave it. Because even if we bring somebody else in, with the restrictions they'll have on them, I'm not persuaded that another manager is going to find things any different. And certainly the managers that we're being linked to, I think it was you, Luke, that mentioned this. Irola, Frank, Silva, they don't excite me at all. To me, it's just new wine in old bottles. I don't see them being game-changing coaches and managers that are going to come to Tottenham and suddenly, we're going to be challenging for trophies and what have you. And unless Pep leaves Manchester City and says, "I've always wanted to work for Tottenham," I don't see what changes. I'm not saying we should stick with Ange. I just think that the problems at the club are so much more fundamental, and ultimately they start in the boardroom. There's no getting away from the fact that it starts in the boardroom. It starts with the leadership. It starts with the control, and I'm going to repeat what I said earlier, but the control that he exerts over football. You look at the people that we've had in the club. Paul Barber, who's now at Brighton and running a really, really good company at Brighton. You look at I've forgotten his name. The head scout. God, what was his name? Sorry, I've lost his name. Who said that this was my dream job, and Daniel Levy turned it into a nightmare. And I suspect that's
Paul Mitchell,
that's
wasn't it?
not.
Was that Paul Mitchell?
Paul Mitchell, thank you, old man, forgetting things. Paul Mitchell, and there's been several like that have gone through, Daniel Camoli and what have you, that have come and gone, and therein lies the problem. Until there is a better direction, there is proper delegation of duties to the people that actually know what they're doing, and given the job to do that they're employed to do, and they're the professionals at doing, I don't see anything changing, unfortunately.
Ian, try and take it back to the question. Let's try and take it back to the question.
Yes, sure.
What's your answer?
I suspect he's too stubborn, and I think that we concede the same goal and the same chances too often. And I know we've had injuries, but the players have come back from injury, and I haven't seen much change. So unfortunately, I feel he's too stubborn. But I am reluctant to say that, one, being an Ange fan, and secondly, you bring in another manager, and what changes? I've already talked about the three that have been linked to that are already working in the Premier League. So I think we're between the devil and the Duke Blue Sea. But that question, as it stands, that doesn't mean I sack Ange. It just means I think you're right. I think he's too stubborn to change his ways.
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine, and that's your view. That's totally fine. And Dave, just remind me, do you think, what was your actual answer to that question?
Look, the answer is Ange ain't going to change, just like Conte didn't, just like Jose Mourinho didn't.
Saying other stuff.
Yeah, no, look, he's not going to change, just like
So
Jose Mourinho didn't, just like Antonio Conte didn't. He's not going to change his way of playing, his philosophy and stuff like that. He's just not going to do it. But we knew that when we hired him.
Yeah.
You're bringing in an attacking manager. You're asking him to be pragmatic. His whole life has been about attacking football. He's not going to change just for Tottenham Hotspur. At the end of the day, Tottenham Hotspur is the anomaly on his CV. It's the anomaly on Conte's CV, the anomaly on Jose's CV. And I'll be honest, it's the anomaly on Nuno's CV as well. He's done a good job at Wolves, done a good job in Saudi Arabia, and he's doing a good job at Forest. We are the anomaly on all these managers' CV. Why? Can't just all be their fault. Can't just keep going to them. You have to change. You have to adapt. How about we change and adapt towards them?
Do you look? Let me put it like this then. In certain games where you need to adapt in the match, like you're winning and you want to hold on to it. I don't think we've seen enough from Ange. Would you agree? Like when you've got to close a game out, you're winning, but you want to keep the points and you want to hold out a result. That's another way of adapting in match, right? That's another way of looking at it. I'm not saying completely change the whole style of play, but there's game management. And I think I'm going to kind of relate that kind of question to that as well.
No, look, I get what you're saying, but when he went and slapped Man City 4-1, everyone that said he didn't adapt, all of a sudden started coming out claiming he's played counter-attacking football and stuff. So what I'm getting at is people are picking different things to suit their narrative. At the end of the day, I'm not going to do that. The reality is, we can't keep asking these managers to adapt to our loser ways. I'm sorry. At some point, you got to go, you know how to win. You've done it at every other club. Teach me. Show me. Drag us along the way. We can't keep asking them to adapt to what they haven't got. At the end of the day, that's a failure on the football club. And the more we keep asking them to adapt, the more we're giving Daniel Levy a free pass.
I'm sorry, Dave, but I have to keep going back to this point. Do you think we've seen it enough? Him able to adapt in game to get us results?
Have I seen enough? No, probably not. But I'd also argue, I go back to the point I made in the summer. I don't think the squad is good enough. I made that point very clear in the summer on some of the biggest platforms. I don't think the squad was good enough to achieve what many Spurs fans want. And at the end of the day, we can sit here talking about adapting. But Dan, I've also heard you call for Areola. Did he adapt to see out 2-0 lead against us? So if you're going to ask that
not in
question of
that game.
Postecoglou, don't sit there and call for Areola because he didn't do it against us.
I mean, Areola wouldn't be my first choice.
Well, did he adapt against us when he was 2-0 up?
No,
Did he see out that lead?
He dropped the points in that game. I think we were very lucky, to be honest, in that game. We were very lucky. I think Bournemouth, they should have buried us. The amount of chances that I had. But I'm talking about generally and managing this team. Look, we haven't seen it. There's going to be an opportunity now in this Europa League, crunch games, big games, yeah, where decisions have got to be made in the match. And we're going to have to see what, if he can do that, say that we need to close off a result in that second leg. We're winning. We need to shut up shop. We need to backs to the wall, change tactics, bring on a kind of defensive player, shut shop a bit. That's what I'd be kind of looking to see. Luke, anything? Sorry, let's go to Nigel actually, because Nigel hasn't spoken. What's your thoughts on this question?
Listen, in all honesty, the first 10 games we were loving it, weren't we? Ange was playing Ange ball. We were all loving it. It was like, this is the greatest football we've ever seen. But let's be realistic. We're 14th in the Premier League. We are losing games for fun. We're conceding goals for fun. We've gone behind 15 times at home this season. It's unheard of. I think he has adapted a few times in a few games, i.e. City away, Liverpool at home after getting spanked 6-3 a couple of weeks later in the League Cup.
Mm-hmm.
We adapt. We play a little bit more defensive. So I think he can do it. And for me, that's a frustrating thing because he's proved it. He showed that he can do it. But as soon as the next game comes, he reverts back to type and does exactly the same thing as what he's done all season and what's losing us games. And I think the injuries just add to it for me. When we've got so many injuries, that is when you should be adapting. That's when you should be making changes. You should be going a bit more defensive, a bit more pragmatic. You can play your Ange ball when we got all our players back. But it's a results business. And for me, it summed it up when we played Brighton away, 2-0 up at half-time. To see it going tits up in the second half, and he refused to change it. And after the game, he said, we didn't deserve to win, so I didn't change it. Or words in effect to that. And it just tells me, listen, Mourinho wouldn't do that. The best managers in the world would not do that. If they saw a problem, they would change something. So for me, he has adapted, but he doesn't do it enough. And he's going to die on a sword for me.
Look, that question, it got us talking a lot, different views on it. Luke, so just going back to you, like you said, you have seen him adapt a bit. But in your opinion, do you think it's been enough?
Well, whether it's been enough or whether it's had the desired effect is, I guess, the question. Because if he goes and obviously if managers carry on winning, we don't care if they adapt. It's all about winning at the end of the day. So if the little tweaks he made, he goes and wins games, then everyone says he don't need to adapt anymore. It's great. So I do think that he has made adjustments, as I say. And then the other part of what we're discussing about being Ange ball, as everyone's quite rightly said, we haven't seen Ange ball for a while. So in theory, that means by default there must have been an adaptation taking place because we haven't seen it, and that's why I've said over the last couple of weeks is that we need to get back to playing that sort of system because that's the reason he was brought in. So if he comes in and we're not getting Ange ball, then he's been brought in to deliver it and he hasn't delivered it. So where people are saying if he wins the Europa, should he stay, should he go, or what happens in the league if he wins this amount, should he stay? For me, if the performances don't match up, then that's a different question. But I think the performances need to get back to the attacking, free-flowing Ange ball. And I think if we get back to that, I think we'll pick up more points and we'll win more games. And everyone's judging now where we are as if they think next year we're going to be in the same position. So if we don't get Europe and we've got Ange next season, I don't think we'll be anywhere near where we are now. I would say we'll be back to the 7th and 8th and 6th and that sort of places where we'd be fighting for. So again, if you're changing a manager to bring in a new one, there has to be some sort of upgrade. So for me, I think Ange will get us into the top, let's just say 8 next year. Bringing in the type of managers that we've been talking about, I don't see them taking us to 5th, 4th, 3rd. I don't see that. So, but for me, it's the performances in terms of how we're playing and getting back to the Ange ball. That's imperative between now and the end of the season.
Okay, fair enough. So if everybody interesting points, we'll kind of slightly look at it a bit differently, which is good, right? Brings good discussion and debate. Now, I kind of already asked this question, but look, let's just nail it quickly before we move on to another question about Ange. Does Ange lack the tactical nous to win crucial games? Anybody takes it first?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think he's got the tactics of if they work, they can beat anybody. But if they don't quite click, then we can look really poor. So you can't in a league season where we beat Villa, we beat City twice. We've had so many dominant performances, even though we've been so poor at times. We can go and win. We can beat anyone. That we absolutely can beat anyone at our best. So for me, and as I say, it's not like it's been the games that don't matter. Even look at the League Cup. I know obviously we lost to Liverpool in the end, but we knocked City out. We beat United out. We beat Liverpool in the first game. They're huge games. Now it's easy to say now, well, they're not really huge games because they're only in the cups. You went out anyway, but in the moments they were cup. They were good results.
They were good results.
So can he do it consistently? Can he do it like all the time? Then not every manager can. But has he got the tactical nous to win crucial games? For me, he definitely showing that he has.
I agree. I think you look in terms of this season, we haven't really struggled too much in large against the big teams. We put in some brilliant performances, and I think that's what many people that are still behind Ange are probably clinging on to. Our problem is against, some of the smaller teams, and I think that comes down to, the quality players in the forward area. I think, we spend large spells in possession, don't really create a lot, and then we give away a couple of chances. We end up losing the game. I think, so like when you talk about the big games or the crucial games, I think he has demonstrated that the tactics can work. I just think we let ourselves down in some of the other games where it's maybe harder to motivate the players on the squad.
So it's frustrating, isn't it? Because we had that fantastic result against City, right? And then, if you guys can remember, the next game we lose at home to Ipswich, and this was the time before we had loads of injuries. So it's just infuriating.
What we have seen this season is we have struggled off the back of Europe. When we've played Europe and tried to follow up on the weekend, we've struggled massively.
I think every team has, though, to be fair. I don't think Villa have won a game after they've played in Europe. But also, going back to what you just said, Dan, I feel like that's been the case with Spurs for years. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I'm just going off of a feeling I have. But whenever we go and get a massive result, I always in my head go, we will lose that next one. I just feel like that's been a common theme, and there might be the odd one that's not the case. But I always feel that we've been doing that. I even think we've done it under Poch as well. I feel like that's always been almost like your Spursy tag is go and deliver. And even rival fans say it to me. They're like, you've gone and beat them, but what's the likelihood that you go and lose to them next week? Sorry. So,
yeah, well, look, there is a theme, isn't there, about Spurs? I get you, Luke. Definitely, there is a theme. We are known for that sort of result. Yeah. Okay. Ian, what's your thoughts on the question?
No, unfortunately, Luke's just about summed it up. I'm not sure I can add that much to it.
It's fine.
But not only in his time at Tottenham, in his time in Japan and Australia, and of course in Scotland, and as Australian national manager, he's won crucial games. So to just say, does he lack the nous to win crucial games? As a question as general as that, no, obviously he doesn't. And as I say, we've beaten Liverpool a couple of times, beaten both Manchester clubs, and beaten them well. So he manifestly can. But whether he can do that consistently enough is another matter. And I think, okay, Chelsea, no doubt you want to talk about Chelsea. That's one thing. Southampton, that's perhaps a separate matter. We're going to find out an awful lot about Ange Postecoglou and the players on a week on Thursday and 2 weeks on Thursday. When you talk about crucial matches, they're the two crucial ones. And then suddenly, if he gets us into a semi-final, I mean, I think all bets are off, because then it's, you are stating the obvious, 2 games from a final. There's nothing. Frankfurt will be difficult. I'm not counting any chickens. But we beat Manchester City in a 2-leg quarter-final 5 years ago. We then provided a miracle to beat Ajax of Amsterdam in a semi-final. So, one game at a time. But yeah, and we'll find out a lot about Ange if he can tactically outsmart good managers in the final stages of a European competition. But does he lack the tactical nous to win crucial games? No. Does he win enough games? No. I think Luke's right, excuse me. I'll quickly finish that it's some of the smaller games that we've struggled in. I need to rest my voice.
It's all right, have a drink of water. Go and get yourself a drink of water, Ian. Nigel, your answer to that question before. I've got one more question about Ange, and then we're going to move on to another area of the club.
I think it's kind of been said already. I think he has one tactic, and that's the way he plays. So does he lack tactical nous? I just think, as has already been said, I think on any day we can beat anyone, and on any day we can lose to anyone. And I think that's the frustration for all of us at the moment, is that certainly early on in the season, not so much now, but at times, a lot of us have already said, we are a moments team where in 10 minutes we can flatten a side, score 2 or 3 goals, game's done.
Yeah.
But by the same token, we just lose some silly games, and we are just wide open all the time for me. So does he lack tactical nous? No, because he's proved that he can win big games. But does he do it enough? No, not for me.
Look, guys, we're going to see it, aren't we? We've got Frankfurt, massive game coming up. Like we all want to win this competition. Even if you believe in Ange, you don't believe in Ange, blame here, blame them, whatever. We all want to win, and we will see. And it's a tough match, and I'm intrigued to see what we're going to watch. That first leg, we need to get a few goals up, I think, if we're going to stand any chance of getting through in that second leg. But we may come back to that later on in the show. So let's go to the final question on Ange, and this will be interesting to find out where you guys' heads are really at. Start off with, let's just go round again with Luke. Would you give Ange another season, and why?
I think it's really hard to answer that at this moment in time. I think the end of the season is crucial, and as I said, it's not just about the results for me. It's about the performances. I think if we can get back to playing the sort of football that we were playing when we were at our best, then I would give him until the end of the start of next season, and we go from there. If we win the Europa League, I completely understand if people don't like his style, they don't like who he is, what he does, what he talks, whatever. But if he goes and wins us the Europa League, I just can't fathom how people think that he should be sacked. Because we scream about loyalty, we scream about the fact that Mourinho was sacked before a final, we scream about all these different things. And then the most successful manager we've had in God knows how long, and I'm just talking about success, I'm not saying in anything before the chat goes crazy, to then have just even think about it. Although saying that, again, it would be the most Spurs thing to do. So for me, the end of the season is crucial. The performances need to match the results.
Have you seen enough, Luke, for Ange? What you see there's potential for him to improve next season. With new signings.
As I said,
you've seen that. You think because that kind of question is kind of making a call, isn't it? Like on where you are out now with Ange, where you're at with him now this season and last season. Can you call it?
No one thinks, and this seems to be the Ange in, Ange out debate is obviously, it seems to be really personal at the moment. It's really heated, and there's no middle ground. You're either in, you're either right, wrong. But for me, the way that I would look at it is next year with Ange in charge, where would we get? And for me, he's going to get back. I don't think we'll finish 5th like we did the year before. I think we get into the top 8, as I said. I think we'll finish 6th, 7th, 8th, around about that. And I think with Ange, that's where we finish. And I think with a lot of the managers that we're talking about, if we was to bring them in, I think we would finish 8th, 7th, 6th. So for me, I don't see there being a huge need to go and change that manager. Now, obviously, if he starts the season poorly or whatever, then things can be said. But right now, I don't see a manager coming in and taking us further than what Postecoglou.
So you would give Ange another chance, yeah? Okay, fair enough. And Dave, a question to you.
Yeah, look, if he was to win the Europa League, he'd be a more successful manager in like 30 years. So I think he has to take the job on next season. At the end of the day, he's delivered what we wanted, which is a trophy. It doesn't matter how he's got there, he's delivered it. So I think if that's the case, he will be there next year. And I think if the club keeps him around, I will give him an opportunity starting into next season. But I think where it's sort of, where I don't think it's matching up for me is we've gone and got a lot of young recruitment. Now, usually you're on the sideline, them players need help through the games. They need instructions. They need you to be on them a little bit more and take care of them a little bit more than your senior players do. And Ange isn't that guy. He's not going to be that guy. And that's where I think, the mismatch is for me heading into next season. So unless the recruitment strategy changes and they bring in more experienced players to help fill this squad out, then I would think it's hard to make the case for him heading into next season, because he's just not the guy that you need with the amount of young players that we have. So the only way I think you really keep him here is if he either wins the Europa League or you change your recruitment strategy in the summer and you bring in more experienced players like he's called for.
So based on, and I'll say this, I said the same to Luke, if you had to make a decision now, we're unlikely to win the Europa League because we don't win anything. Would you give him another season, Dave? Come on.
No, I think it's hard to give him another season based off what's unfolded this season. But like I said, I'm not going to blame him for absolutely everything that's gone on this season.
That's fine, man. I get it, man. I totally get it. Yeah, I understand that. And Ian, the same question to you.
Yeah, I think I genuinely think I've heard this: win the Europa League, but still get rid of Ange. I think that's one of the more bonkers things I've heard in my life, given where we are as a club, given what we've done or not done over the last 30 years or so. To then say, yeah, we're gonna sack the manager after he's won a major European trophy is, to my mind, the mad end of bonkers. That's not to say I can understand why people think that. I mean, I'm just thinking, never mind anything else, what about the optics of that? How that will be perceived in the game generally? How other managers that are potentially the manager of Tottenham Hotspur will consider, hang on a minute, even if I now win a major European trophy for this club, they still might fire me. Where's the attraction in that? So if he wins the Europa League, of course he has to have another season. That said, if we get to October break and we're still, we've played, 10 games, lost 5, drawn 2, won 3, then I think you do, despite the fact that the best managers are probably snapped up, you'd probably have to make a change at that point. But I mean, the results have been atrocious, so there's no getting away from the fact the results have been atrocious. You look at the Chelsea game, we get beat badly at Chelsea, we lose to Frankfurt with our best players back, and you just say it's simply not going anywhere with him, and you'd have to get shot, I'm afraid. But no one will say that with more regret than me. But yeah, it'd be wonderful if we won the Europa League and he gets a bit more time and a bit more backing.
Fair enough. Nigel, same question to you, and then I'll answer it.
This is going to make a fantastic short because Ian's just said about bonkers, and I've got a tune now going in my head, and I'm going to answer it as in, regardless if we win the cup or not, I'd get rid of him just because I just don't think he's good enough for me. Look at the last 2 cups we won. We won the League Cup in 2008. Juan de Ramos, awful manager. He was gone. And then 99, George Graham, great Arsenal manager. Not such a great Tottenham manager. So for me, even if you win a trophy,
sorry, let's cut that. I'm sorry, I'll come right in on you on that. George Graham won the League Cup.
He did.
And he was fired because he wasn't Levy's man. He was an Arsenal man. There was nothing wrong with that side. He brought in.
Yeah, but where do we finish in the league that season?
I can't remember.
Like
but we won a bloody cup. And where did Hoddle finish? What did Hoddle lost? I was at Cardiff when Hoddle lost the League Cup to a fairly ordinary Blackburn. So, Hoddle was a great player, but not a great Tottenham manager. Yeah.
But my point is, just because you win a trophy doesn't mean you should stay. For me, it's all about the league. If we're 15th, 16th in the league, that's not good enough for me. We're Tottenham Hotspur. We should be higher. Hopefully we do win the Europa League, and I may change my mind. Suddenly we might win. I might see Ange bouncing around the stadium and fall in love with him again. But currently, no, not for me.
Right. Okay. So At this stage, I wouldn't give him another chance. I'm sick to death of Ange. I've got to be honest. I can't have all these defeats. I can't have it. I can't see a manager not adapting to get us results. And I just don't like his persona. I don't like how he speaks to the fans, how he behaves. There's so many reasons. We haven't got enough time to go over it now. But just to let you guys know where I stand. Now, I was having a conversation with Luke. I don't know, Luke, if you can remember, obviously off YouTube, that what does Ange need to do? And we've got a question coming up soon about, you know, what I want to see from Ange and the remaining fixtures. So I'm going to leave my thoughts on that in a minute. But look, if we win the Europa League, by default, he keeps the job. He has to keep the job. You know, he'll be the most successful manager in 40 years, you know, winning that Europa League. And he would, and I'd get it, and I'd totally understand it. And if he wins it, that's amazing. It is amazing if he wins that trophy. And do I need to kind of apologise? I don't know about if he's apologising, but it's, you know, I got it wrong. You know, and I have to hold my hand up, and I will do, of course. I want Spurs to win. Yeah. What I'm seeing under Ange right now is I can't see us even playing well. You know, we're not even playing well at the moment. So it's really hard for me to kind of think anything positive about the man. But I get everybody's points and perspectives, and each to their own, and I respect what everyone says. So fair play to everybody. So look, let's move on to the next question. Let's get into it. Okay, so this is Dave's going to like this one. Ready? Is this squad actually good enough to compete for trophies and a good league position, or have fans overrated the players? I know we touched on it, kind of, haven't we? Like on and off throughout the kind of discussions.
No, look,
no, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, look, is the squad better than where we are in the Premier League at the moment? Yes, but by how much is what I question. I don't think it's as good as many people make it out to be up there fighting for top 4, top 6, etc. I do think it's better than where we are currently. But, you know, I didn't think it was good enough from the summer coming in. And I'm not being funny, but does it really matter whether a fan hypes up a player or not? It doesn't. What difference does that make? Fans pay their money. They're entitled to support, you know, support the way they want. And if they want to praise a player, we want to criticize a player, more well within their right to do. I don't think it really matters what fans' opinion are of a player. At the end of the day, they're not in control of the football club, and they're not in control of the decisions. The people inside the club are. Fans are entitled to their opinion. But look, when it comes to, you know, the squad, I don't think it's good enough. You look at the forward line. We sold the world's best striker, and we replaced it with a lot of fodder that we picked up fighting relegation in the Premier League or have got relegated from the Premier League. You know, you look in terms of we needed more midfielders to come in. We brought in a guy from the Swedish second division, an Archie guy from the Championship, who's ended up playing defender most of this season. You know, and we've also left ourselves short at the back. You know, Destiny Udogie coming in and trying to play every single game from the start of the season when we should have, when we already felt the repercussions of his injuries from the season before. Should have had another left back, you know, to be able to come in and slot in there and stuff. But you look at the squad as well. It's one of the youngest in the Premier League. It's naive. It's young, and no, I think it's slightly better than what we're seeing, but I don't think it's as great as other people make it out to be.
Okay, fair enough. Anybody else want to take that one?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think what Dave says is fair. And I think the other question is we do forget how young some of these players are. But some of the best players that we've seen this season, Graham Bergvall being prime examples, are some of the, you know, two of the youngest players in the squad. So which tells you something that some of the older players are maybe not as good. I mean, Bentancur, when Bentancur plays well, Tottenham play well, but he doesn't play well often enough. Maddison, I'm disappointed with Maddison. Yeah, he has his moments, but that's sort of almost a Tottenham player. He's brilliant in flashes rather than brilliant week in, week out. Johnson, yeah, he's got, you know, he can prove anything with statistics. His numbers are good, but sometimes his overall performances aren't that great. Yeah, I mean, I'm with Dave. We definitely needed another left back. And this is where Ange lets himself down. We desperately needed a holding player. Let Hojbjerg go, and sometimes you think Hojbjerg would have been excellent.
He doesn't play with that position, though, Ian. That's the problem, isn't it? He doesn't have
Well, he doesn't play that position. I actually wrote something in the summer of 2023 where I said that I thought that I thought Højbjerg would go. I just didn't think Højbjerg was an Ange player, and I think I proved right with that. But you've got to have somebody. You still have to have somebody to do the dirty work, and Højbjerg's really good at doing the dirty work. We don't have anybody that does that. And therein lies some of the problems, and therein lies, going back to your previous question about Ange's naivety and Ange's stubbornness, and that probably will cost him his job.
So just to check, so when we answer that question, Dave and Ian, is this squad good enough to compete for trophies and a good league position? What is your answers?
No, not at the moment.
No, Dave?
I don't expect us to win.
No?
I mean, I would love to come back on your show in the beginning of June when we've just won the Europa League, and you remind me of that.
I'll put you on. I'll put you on. I'll bring you on.
Or you can show me a video. This was Ian on the April Fool's Day making a complete fool of himself when we've just won the Europa League, because I will be dancing around the room. But
so
in reality, much as I've said about Ange winning and what are the consequences if he wins the league, wins the Europa League, he stays. I don't expect us to win the Europa League. I'll be pleasantly surprised if we actually get past Frankfurt. But at the moment, we are, at least, this is my point to Dave about buying, having a new investment and buying 50 million pound players. That's, I think, where we're short at the moment. At least that, if we're going to be a competitive side.
And I think
Dave,
in years,
was yours no? Was it?
Yeah, it was a no. I think in years gone by, you had Harry Kane, and then you had Prime Son, and I think when you got in and around there, you're always maybe thinking and hoping that we do have a player on their day that can drag us through. Now, ultimately, it never happened. When you look at that squad now, when we get there, what player do you really pin your hopes on that says, what, he's gonna drive us forward in this game? You can rely on him, and I just don't see it there. So no, I don't think this squad is good enough, to compete for trophies or get one over the line. I think we've seen that against Liverpool in the semi-final, right? It'll get you so far, but ultimately, the quality on the pitch in that second leg, it really showed. We got played off the park. It was men against boys, and I think that's what we'll come up with, even if we do make, a semi-final or a final of the Europa League. I just think you're going to come up with, probably a manager that's probably a little bit more smart in terms of in-game tactics and stuff like that, but also ultimately the quality on the football pitch. I don't think it is good enough now to compete for trophies. Not where it is now, no. And I don't think you could even bring in Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp tomorrow. I still think with this squad, they don't get it close to, they don't compete for trophies with it.
Okay, let me ask Luke the question, but a little bit of a different angle. Where should this squad be in the table? Luke, where do you rate this group of players? Where should we be? Because we shouldn't, I do not think, and I'm convinced we should not be this low in the league.
No, and no one, even the most sternest Ange is not saying that this is acceptable, that this should be acceptable, that we should be where we are, that the league defeats are acceptable. No one that I've seen has said that. So I completely agree, we shouldn't be there. But I as I said before, between 6th and 8th is where I think this squad would be. If you was to actually just put the squads up against each other, I think between 6th and 8th is roughly where we should be.
Yeah.
And then when you then say, so for instance, the question is a good league position. So for me, if you win a cup and finish 6th with this squad, you've done an incredible job. So that's where I would put us, between 6th and 8th. And there's a magnitude of factors in that, in terms of, like, let's say, for instance, next year, if we're not in Europe, there are so many teams that are above us this year that will be in Europe, that'll be impacted. So it could turn out that actually we get like a 5th place next year or a 6th place because other teams are in Europe. They're going through the issues of playing 2 games a week and everything else. But in terms of just laying these squads out, if you was just to label out the squads and go, right, who is where, I don't think we're anywhere above 5th.
Can I add to that, Dan?
Of course.
Is that I think when people look back and review this season, they'll turn around and say it was a pretty ordinary Premier League season. That, Manchester City, who've been so dominant, were extremely poor. Arsenal, who were the the heir apparent to Manchester City's title if ever they dropped, have also been pretty poor. Chelsea, another big club, have been inconsistent. Manchester United, atrocious. Good luck on Liverpool, because they've managed to exploit it. But when you look at Nottingham Forest, they're a very good side. I love watching them. I mean, I really get excited watching them. But they're in third place, and they look like they might finish in third place. An ordinary Chelsea might well finish fourth. This hasn't been a vintage season. And I agree with you. But to only finish between 6th and 10th in what's been an ordinary Premier League season is a long way from good enough. A long way.
Nige, and I'm going to just flip it a little bit, change up a little bit. What was your expectations this season, pre-season, before it started, after the transfer window ended? What was your prediction? What did you expect from Spurs? Ange's second season, finished 5th last year. He's had more signings. Where did you predict us? And everybody can answer this question as well.
I'll be honest, I said 7th, but that was on the hope we'd finish higher. I was one of those that was really happy with Solanke when he came in. I thought he'd hit 20 league goals. So for me, he's been a major disappointment. But yeah, I thought we'd get top 7. But yeah, we have massively been let down this season. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I expected a top 7 finish, and I do think that the players are good enough to finish in that position. Like Ian said, Premier League's been pretty ordinary this season. Liverpool are going to win the league without getting out of second gear for me.
Yeah,
they've been
No
so.
part of me thinks it's a missed opportunity this season.
100% it is.
Yeah.
Every few years, there's always a couple of big clubs that are going through a new cycle, phasing out the old squad and stuff like that. A bit like when we were up there chasing with Pochettino. A lot of the bigger teams were sort of recycling and in that sort of phase. But we never really actually spot that weakness and said, you know what, this is the summer, let's push for it. And that's the big problem. What we should have done is put ourselves in a position that when Jurgen Klopp's era was coming to an end, Guardiola's era to a degree, coming to an end, we should have been putting ourselves in a position to capitalize on that, and we just haven't. We
haven't done it. No, you're right. And Dave, what was your predictions pre-season? I know you said when I went on to your show that that transfer window was a massive worry for you, and you thought this season was going to end in disappointment. So where did you predict this team finishing?
I remember saying that we weren't going to achieve our ambitions, which is winning a trophy. I think, I predicted that we weren't going to get top 4, if I remember correctly. I did say, we'd fall a little bit lower down, but that's because you got your Europa League and extra games and all that sort of jazz. So I did say, I think if I remember correctly, I think I said in around 6th or 7th, if I remember correctly, and hopefully we get a cup run, if I remember correctly. Well, I remember I was on Last Word on Spurs and I was very unhappy with the transfer window. I said that, and I did say, I don't think the recruitment matches up with the ambitions of what we want around Tottenham, which is a trophies. They don't match up, and I think it was going to end in disaster.
Okay. Luke, have you answered that one?
No, I haven't. I always have two different views on this. I always go head and heart. So part of me goes, right, well, we was 5th, and if we make adjustments here, maybe we could be higher up. But as I say, I'm pretty sure I said something like 6th, 7th, 8th was around about. I knew that Europe was going to be a big toll on this squad. I didn't expect it to go as bad as it has, obviously. But I knew that, there's so many at the start of the season. I think every Spurs fan could easily sit there and go, well, there's a position we need. There's a position we need. There's a position we need. And when you're doing that, then around about 6th, 7th, 8th.
Okay. And what, trying to win a trophy? Yeah.
Well, try to. Yeah.
Okay. Ian, what was your pre-season predictions?
I expected us to be finishing top 4 or 5 and hopefully challenging for a trophy. For all I've said about Ange, there's no doubt that this has been a massive disappointment, and no way should this squad, however much it's maybe not as good as we'd like to think it is, and however much it's been decimated by injuries, we shouldn't be 16th. Let's be honest, we should not be 16th. There's no getting away from the fact that this has been a massive disappointment. And I think if we do go out the cup to Frankfurt, I think all of us will be taking a long, hard look and saying, right, where do we go here? Because I think Ange will be done if we go out to Frankfurt. And you can't blame anybody for feeling that. And I know I can see some of the stuff in the chat, about where we are. This is so far from acceptable, but it's a massive. I can't tell you how disappointed I am, and part of that is because I was an Ange fan, totally an Ange fan. But hey,
Ian, this season, right? Even though it disappointed me at the end of last season, I was, well up for giving Ange this season to improve, see what he can do this season, right? He's got some signings. I wanted to see adaptation. I wanted to see something different. I didn't want to go to somewhere like Anfield or wherever, St. James's Park, and play the high line. I wanted to see if he had some tactical nous and what he's learned from the previous seasons. And what I've seen is inconsistencies. Win one week, lose the next. Then we started getting injuries. Results got worse and worse and worse, to the point that I don't understand him as a manager. And then he lost me. So, and since then, I've not seen anything to convince me anything else. And this is particularly to do with the manager. Look, I have issues with the board massively. I have issues in the recruitment team. It's not just Ange I have issues with. There's so many problems with this club. The biggest issue is Levy. That is the biggest issue. But we have to talk about Ange because he's our manager. And if we look at the results, they've just not been good enough. So, look, that's where I stand with it.
But you talk about going to St. James's Park, and that's a pretty good example. But I was there when we were playing for second place, and Poch's team got absolutely arse whipped. Sorry if I can't use that expression, but I just have. But this season, I watched the game. Now, in fairness, I didn't see the whole game, and I was I think it was at Toronto Airport. Watching it in one of the cafes on my iPad that I'm on now, so it's not the ideal forum to watch football. But from what I could see, we played them off the park and couldn't get the goals. Leicester, the first away match of the season, I think Newcastle was the second away match. Leicester, we played off the park, nearly lost the bloody game. Now you can say there the writing was on the wall for Ange. When we dominated two games like that, should have had 6 points, had one. You can look back and say that. But, fine margins in life, fine margins of professional sport. Maybe if we'd won those games, things would have been different. But we didn't. And, of course, things deteriorated after that.
Okay. Anybody want to add anything else to this question? I've got on the next one now. This is going to more look at the kind of the fans, the board. Anybody want to add anything to this before we move on? Should we go? Let's move on. Okay. So this one, I'm not sure how it's going to go down. So let's see. Have Spurs fans been conditioned to settle for excuses rather than demand accountability? Who wants to take this one first?
What do you mean by conditioned?
Look, I just think if you look at the protests, right? There were, yes, we had 2,000 there at the last one. Previous ones, you've had 100, 200, 300 at most. People are still going to the games year on year, spending their money, getting behind the team. Why has fans generally let this go on for too long with Levy failing us?
I'll take it, Dan, because I'm probably the oldest here. So let me put it in some sort of historical perspective. When I was growing up in the 60s and 70s, there was supposedly a big six: the Manchester clubs, the two North London clubs, and the Liverpool clubs, and a few others dotted around. And trophies, if you go back to the 1960s and 70s, trophies were dotted around amongst a number of clubs, amongst us, Chelsea, Chelsea won, Manchester City even won an FA Cup, which was, in those days they didn't win very much. Everton, you can go back. Lots of clubs were winning. Wolves won a League Cup. I'm just, going through them. You look at the figures now since Sky took over and some of the foreign money. I won't say any more than that. The foreign money came into the game, and I haven't got the numbers in front of me, and I wish I had. If I knew this question was coming up, I'd have got them. But of the 60, 70, whatever it is, domestic trophies that have been competed for, virtually all of them have been won by 4 clubs. Manchester United, Manchester City, Chelsea and Arsenal have won vast proportions of that. And a lot of that obviously comes down to the money that's been gifted to them, legally or unlegally, or illegally. So the game has changed. So to some extent, I think all fans of other than those clubs, and they'll have their fair share of hangers-on and glory hunters, have been conditioned by the fact that we're no longer playing on a level playing field. That playing field, when you look at it, you may say Man United were a bigger club than Tottenham in 1968, the first time I watched a Spurs Man United game. But the difference in money, because there was gate money, and there was relatively little sponsorship, almost no television money. So the Amata, Tudan Soulful, I don't know who you are, but I'm a huge Northern Soul fan, so I suspect you are too. So hi, sorry about that. The difference between the clubs was minimal. If you looked at Arsenal's turnover, Tottenham's turnover, Manchester United's turnover, Everton's turnover, Liverpool's turnover wouldn't have been very much. Now you look at it and I say, hang on a minute, Tottenham have got huge turnover, slightly different kettle of fish because we're not spending the money in the right way. But I think that most club supporters have been conditioned to being content if they're just playing amongst the big boys in the Premier League. For the vast majority of clubs, and having a decent cup run. Plus, of course, you've got the football tourist. And we didn't get much of that. We did in the 1980s because we suddenly got some Scandinavians coming over on day trips. I don't know if any of you remember that, but I think the term Aguna came from the Swedes and the Norwegians who came over. Oh, I'm a Guna because they couldn't pronounce Gunner. That's where, as I understand it, it came from. So demanding accountability, we've seen the protests. They're a relatively small movement. Yeah, it's growing. Yeah, we get the we want Levy out. But demanding accountability, I suspect too many supporters are happy. Roy Keane talked about the prawn sandwich brigade. I think too many supporters are probably too content to go and sit in their luxury seat, be entertained without demanding the trophies that I got used to. And,
so Ian, you've seen
yes, sir.
You've seen the regular Spurs winning trophies regularly in the decades, and it's stopped since Levy's come in. It's stopped.
Yeah.
So that is a massive change, isn't it, to this football club?
No, I couldn't agree with you more. No, absolutely. Absolutely. But I actually think the problem goes back before Levy. You see, I don't understand Alan Sugar, this supposedly, business guru, whose business Amstrad was making as many satellite dishes and satellite receivers it could for Sky Television. There's a Champions League being talked about, and he was involved in those discussions. And he doesn't join those dots of saying there is going to be a massive amount of money injected into football. Because even now, 40 years or 30 years on, Sky doesn't have a business model without Premier League football. So how he didn't join those dots and work out that there was going to be massive money to be made from football if you were at the forefront and you were investing in the business. So I think the problem goes back before Levy, albeit, Levy's priority is, unlike Chelsea, unlike Manchester City, the priority is to make money for the business. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not. It can't be at the expense of putting trophies on in the cabinet. And we haven't put any trophies in the cabinet, nor look like doing it too much.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Thank you for that. So let me add something to this. So we were all told we're building this stadium, and it's going to be a game changer, and it's going to allow us to compete with the top clubs in the Premier League and in Europe. But we haven't broken the wage structure. So, adding that on, anybody else want to have a go at answering this question?
Yeah. Look, I don't believe in this, whole fans are conditioned and stuff like that. At the end of the day, everyone can think for themselves. Everyone can either choose to believe in what they put out and tell you or choose not to. And I think, going after the fans, the people that you want to get on your side, I don't believe is the right way around it. I think just keep hammering at the message, allow the other messages from the club to come out, and eventually I think people read between the lines. And what you're actually seeing naturally is more people not believing in what they're being told and more, heading over to their, get the ownership side out. I don't believe it's fans being conditioned. At the end of the day, we're all adults here. We'll all have our own different breaking points. Some can tolerate shit longer than others. That's just the reality of it. But I think naturally, the more the club keeps going in one direction and the more that the messages keep hammering home, I think more and more people will start coming towards that side of thinking. I don't believe in this conditioning and stuff like that. At the end of the day, you're going after the people you want to come down and support the message. I don't understand that. I think personally, it's counterproductive. I think, for years, people seen where we were as a club at White Hart Lane in my lifetime, to where we were going. I think many people said, I'll stick with this for a while and see where it goes. And unfortunately, because we've gone through the process of buying up all the property to build the stadium and all that, it's been a long, drawn-out process. But what you're seeing now is many people sort of said, okay, we'll see where it goes. But since we've built that stadium, and they said the stadium was so that we could keep our best players at the club, match wages of top European clubs around the world, but also attract players, from the top clubs and stuff like that. And what we're seeing is we're selling Harry Kane. We're due to sell looks like Romero. You look at the players that we're bringing in, it doesn't match up. And I think more and more what you're seeing people is going, well, hang on, I've given enough time now since the stadium's been built to start seeing some fruits of that revenue. We're not seeing it. And the more and more diverse revenue streams that Levy keeps bringing in and they're using as the disguise to put towards the football team, and the more and more shit that we're seeing on the football pitch, naturally you're going to see people gravitate towards that side of the message. So that's my feelings and my opinion on it. I think it's like anything, if you're in a place where people have thought one way for so long, and all of a sudden you're coming in with a dissenting voice. It takes time for people to listen. It takes time for people to gather your side of the message. But at the end of the day, you keep giving the club enough rope to hang itself, which is the figure of speech. Eventually, they're going to lose a lot of the fan base, and you will end up getting one united movement going after the ownership and asking for them to sell up and stuff like that. But I don't believe in this conditioning and all this other stuff. At the end of the day, people are free to think what they want. Daniel Levy's not sitting there telling me, Dave, you have to think this. He's not sitting there telling you guys, you make up your own opinion off what's put out.
I'm just surprised that fans have put up for it for so long. That's my opinion. I'm just surprised. For me, I want to win. I want to win title, Champions Leagues, cups. I want to be competitive. I want to have some pride with my team. I want to be able to talk to rival fans. This season, I haven't spoken to any rival fans. There's nothing to say. It's embarrassing, Dave. Embarrassing.
No, I agree with you, but what I think, when you look at when I first became a fan, I was born in 91, compared to where Levy took us to in 2019, you would argue the club was on the right path. It was improving. But it's since Pochettino where the wheels have absolutely fell off. And we keep going around in this cycle. And this cycle is where you're seeing people start going on to the other side of things. Up until then, it's very hard to get people behind a Levy out movement when you've gone from a mid-table club to a Champions League final. But when you've gone from a Champions League final and you're falling down to 14th in the table, barely being able to compete in cup competitions, you will get people on your side.
No, fair enough. Luke, what's your take on it? I know it's a bit of a controversial question, but
No, I think you can go in so many different ways. I think that the protest, first of all, from what I've seen all over, I don't use social media as your barometer, but I think a lot of people felt that previous protests have very much been are you Levy out? If you're not, you ain't got a clue. And it was quite aggressive. And it was, whereas that wasn't the case this time. So there was a lot of people that went, I didn't realize how well that was going to go. I didn't realize how well planned it was. And I would go.
Luke, I don't think everybody was aggressive.
No, I'm not saying everyone. I'm not saying everyone. I'm saying that was a consensus that people had that never attended. That it was very much you're with us or you're against us. Whereas this time it wasn't that case. This time it was very much an open conversation, people being involved, and that's why I think it hit so much better than what previous ones have, and that's why this time I think that the numbers will increase quite drastically because people will be a bit more aware to go, actually, that wasn't what we thought it would be. This is exactly what we could get behind. But I also think that what you've mentioned earlier is right. I think people kind of said that regardless of what we thought about the stadium, we did need to go to a bigger stadium to start competing unless you had a billionaire. But even them clubs now are starting to realise that actually we need bigger, better stadiums. The fact that stadium is used for 40 games a year, say 40 days a year it's used, and there's nothing else going on is crazy to me. So the fact he's bringing in loads of other stuff is brilliant. But as Dave said, you need to match that up. And if you're not matching it up and you're not showing the ambition, then people are 100% going to get behind the Levy outs. And I do think that there are worse out there in terms of like what Ratcliffe's doing at United, going in and then sacking all of the people that are the locals and all things like that. But there has to be some sort of change. That you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over. And I think the big thing at this moment in time is what I keep harping back to is there doesn't seem to be a plan. We go from one extreme to the other. We go from one manager that plays one style to the other, one formation to this. We go from buying not top level, but established players and then keeping them for a long period of time. Now we're signing young players. There never seems to be let's go and do this. It's always like one thing, flip, we'll go to another thing. And we don't let anything have enough time to really settle. But I think they stumbled across Pochettino. He took us to levels they never expected us to be at. And then it wasn't matched. That elevation in quality is just never has not been matched.
Yeah, thank you, Nigel, for that question, and then I'm going to answer Joe's question in the chat. Just mix it up a little bit.
For me, I just think, I've supported Spurs over 40 years, and I've seen Spurs win trophies in the 80s and in the 90s. And we won one trophy in a quarter of a century. For me, it's just, it's not that fans have been conditioned to settle for excuses. I think we are just used to failure. So we expect it every year. I don't think, I don't ever go into a season anymore thinking we got a chance of winning something. I hope we do. Whereas back in the 80s and 90s, I thought, maybe not so much the 90s in the league, but 80s certainly, we're going to win something this year. Whereas now we don't. And the problem, I think, with the stadium is that when the stadium was being built, Tottenham were probably the best they'd been for 20 odd years. We were competing for leagues. We were going to the Champions League final. And I think we all thought we are moving stadiums. And by the time we get in there, we are going to be winning things. And as it is, we've got worse and worse and worse. And now I think fans are demanding accountability. I think we're starting to now because we can see that we're not going forward at all.
I think that stadium move come at the worst possible time. I think if I might be wrong on this because obviously it was a while ago now, but I'm pretty sure over that 2-year period, we picked up the most points, won the most games, scored the most goals and conceded the least. And then we moved out of our own stadium when I played in Wembley. We're the only team in the world that could go on that sort of run and then completely destabilise the whole club. It's laughable. It literally is laughable.
Yeah, it is, guys. Well, we'll see what happens on the Sunday. I'm going to the protest. Nigel, I know you're going. I don't know if any of you guys are going, but let's hope it's big. Let's hope people sing their hearts out and demand change because it has not been good enough. 24 years, one trophy. I've had enough. Patience has run out. And I've just found this season so difficult. I mean, this is the worst season I can remember in memory. To not have any confidence going into any game of football. I've never felt like this before. Normally, even last season, I thought we could win games. Seasons under Conte, Mourinho, Pochettino, of course. But this season, I've lost all hope. with how we play, and it's not a good feeling to have. I'm sure many of you guys on the panel have as well.
Do you know what deflates me, Dan? It's like, it's not just one quick fix. It's not as simple as go out and sign the right players, or sign the manager, sack the manager, bring in another manager, sack the owner, bring in another owner. We're so far off it, you know, in terms of all the pieces that need to come together. And I find that's what's deflating. What's deflating me more is I'm seeing the quality on the pitch from the Pochettino just completely decline. You know, once Son and Davies leave, that's the last of that gone, you know. And I just watching the quality, and I don't see the quality on the pitch getting any better. You know, you look at the managers we were hiring after Poch, Jose Mourinho, Conte, to now, to now Postecoglou's and stuff like that. And I just see things getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And I think that's what's really irritating fans. And look, let's be honest, we haven't really experienced a season where we've lost, 19, 20 games over the course of a whole season either, you know. But what I will say is, I do think there'll be I do think you'll see increased numbers at that protest again at the weekend, and I hope there is, because at the end of the day, the only way we're going to get change is if we can get out and force it. Now, the problem you've got is, you know, there is a lot of voices that are discontent with the ownership, but there's a lot of fans just that are outside of England or out of the immediate vicinity where, you know, they don't have the means to just pay to get in and protest and stuff like that, you know. And what you're actually asking is a portion of the fan base to sort of carry the can for everybody else to a large degree. But I do hope that you do see more and more numbers turn up, because the more numbers that turn up, the more that it's in the press, the more that it's in the media, and the more scrutiny on people within the club, and more accountability. And it gets to the point where someone's going to snap and say, if you're not performing, you're out, and start getting in people that will. So, you know, I hope more and more people turn up.
I do. Just coming back there, Dave, a little bit, and about the team and the squad, and you said we're so far away from it. I would like to see this team with a better coach, because I do think we have some good players.
But to what point? Is it to the point you want to go and compete and win trophies consistently? When not, come on, Dan.
Walk towards that. Like, if you get a decent coach in, somebody who can organise this team in the defence and attack, you know,
we have
get the most out. Yeah, similar to Pochettino. Yeah, similar. But also, the club need to change their recruitment strategy. And it's so disappointing to hear yesterday that news that we're not. You know, all you need, seriously, you get to summer, you sign 3 or 4 top players, not crazy money, but experienced winners. Bring them into that side in the positions that we need, with a coach there to organise them. I think next season we can have a good season. But with the news coming out from Levy that we're not going to spend much money, it's so disheartening.
The thing is, I understand what you're saying, right? But Pochettino brought us to great heights. We never got over the line and won anything, though.
No,
and that's my point. A coach will bring you so far. There's other pieces and parts of the club that need to come to the fore to help help you get over the line. It's not just one simple quick fix. It's not like for instance, right, under Abramovich, they had one of the best squads available to them. They could literally go, it's not working out with the manager. You're the problem. Sack you, bring in another guy, go and win something. We can't do that at Tottenham. The reality is, we can go bring in Pep tomorrow. He'll bring you so far, but we ain't gonna come down to his level and help him get over the line. That's why I say there's so many pieces and we're so far off it that really need to come together.
And also then it goes back to, like, you know, knowing the ceiling under Levy. Yeah, we all know what Levy wants: Europe, try and win a cup, and that's what I mean. At least we can get to some kind of competitive football where we're not losing all these games. We're actually seeing some progression in the team. We're moving forward. We've got a style of play that works. You're not going to win every game. I know it's not realistic, but, you know, at least go into games with some confidence that we've got a chance to do something. That's what I'm kind of saying. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's accepting the circumstances under Levy and the board. So, guys, let me just answer this question. Joe has come up. Big up to you, Joe. He says, do you all think Ange knows his best 11? I don't think he's got a clue.
Good question.
I think he knows his best 11, but how often has he been able to put it out with injuries and stuff like that? You know, I think with the amount of different squads we've seen out there this season, it can come across as, he doesn't know his best 11. But you take into account the amount of injuries. When you get a player back, you throw him in, he's gone again then for another few weeks, etc. You know, but I do think, you know, he does know his best 11 for sure.
Okay. Anyone else?
I think he knows his best 9, maybe 10. I think the midfield is where I'm not sure he knows where his best 11 are, but I certainly think the back five are always going to be the back five when fit. I know Spence has come in and interrupted that, but I still think if everyone's fit, Spence doesn't start. And I think the front three of Son, Solanke and Johnson is the front three.
Where does Kulusevski play then?
Kulu plays in Maddison's position and Maddison doesn't play.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't do that, but I think that's what Ange does.
Oh, well, do you think, but you think that's what Ange thinks? Because I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think he actually wants to get back to a midfield of Maddison, Kulusevski and Bentancur. I think that's actually what he wants to get back to. You know, that's what I think personally.
I think we need to, you're saying about fans being kind of manipulated and shown away and believe in this. I think we kind of need to get away from this best 11 thing though, because you're talking about absolute people at their absolute peak, not including potential injury, a game yesterday, a game tomorrow. So how many, like for instance, Guardiola might have a best 11 for a away trip to Arsenal, but that best 11 might be different if he goes to say a Wolves at home. So because there are differences. Yeah, exactly. So like for instance, if we're playing at home, then your best 11 to again a bottom half team might be completely different to if we're going away, actually Sarr might come in this time because he's a little bit more, he can get around a pitch. So I agree, I don't think he has got a best 11. And when you've got so many players that are not in good form, then you're just trying to work out who's going to probably be in a slightly better form. But I think if you was to ask that to the fans as well, I think we would all probably put in different 11s as well. So, and that kind of says to me, we should really be having, you say your back five, you're probably right. I think Spencer started a hell of a lot of games, is that fitness. But I think everybody's front three would probably be different. A lot of people would probably say Kulu definitely starts. Solanke, I think, is the only player that we've signed, ironically, this summer where you go, well, he starts.
I think you make an absolute great point there where, we have to sort of get away from the best 11. It's about a squad, If you're signing players, it's not only saying, oh, he's a squad player. Ideally, you want him to be better than the players that you've got starting out on the pitch. But we do have to start recognising and moving with the times. Football is now beyond the best 11. And I do agree, because we've only really had a bare 11 and then a lot of players that are nowhere near at that level underneath, it sort of seems like that. But you look at teams that are winning now, they've got squads. You look at Liverpool this season. They've got a squad. Across the front line, they're 5-6 deep. Across midfield, the same. Across the back line, same with goalkeepers, 2-3 deep. They're taking out one player and bringing in another player of a certain quality. We have to start realising, and as fans, that's what we need to go and compete. Even just to say to a manager, there's a bare 11, go and win something, go and win success. And you're asking that bare 11 to practically play every 60 games or each of 60 games across the season, and what's going to take you to win something. I mean, it's impossible. So we do have to start calling for a proper squad for these managers to work with. It's absolutely important. The amount of games that are being added in, you've got extra games added in with the way they've changed the Champions League and Europa League format, extra games on the internationals and stuff. You need a squad now to compete, not just a bare 11.
I think you're bang on, but one of the things I keep hearing as well is we need to improve the squad, and then other people saying we need to improve the 11. And I said this on Savage Show on Sunday. The facts are is that Johnson is our right winger. Let's just say that for the moment. Johnson's our right winger. We go and get, let's say, Mbermo. We go and get Mbermo. He comes in. Then Johnson becomes a squad player. So we go from having a Johnson who we don't think is good enough to Mbermo's there. Well, I tell you what, Johnson off the bench is a lot of better options than a lot of other Premier League clubs have got. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden you improve that 11. Therefore, that then improves your squad. So instead of keep building this squad like what we've done in the summer in terms of signing all these young players to boost the squad, well, I tell you what, go and sign a first team player, which by default then improves your squad. That's what we should be doing.
But that's where we massively went wrong in the summer, though. You look at the recruitment. We're on about, making progress from last season. The only player we really added to really sort of progress that team was Dom Solanke. Most other signings were, sitting there waiting for them to progress and stuff like that. And we wonder why we haven't seen natural progression this season, because we didn't have the summer window to see that progression. We didn't sign the right players.
And I think you was right earlier as well in terms of let's just forget everyone's opinion on Ange for a minute. That's absolutely fine. We don't just disregard him. There needs to be change at the top. There needs to be a better direction from your director of football. There needs to be much better recruitment. There needs to be a much better medical team, because I know people are saying it about Ange. We've had players like Eric Lamela on our team. We've had players like Ledley. Our medical department has been dreadful for years. So we need to change every facet at this club, even if you want the manager gone. And everyone, again, we go back to the Iriolas. I know Fulham went through a bad patch, but all of the managers that we are linked to and fans are going, oh, I'd like him. They're at settled clubs with good recruitment. We're a different kettle of fish to these clubs at this moment in time.
Oh, guys, look, let's move on. There's 2 more questions, and then we're going to discuss the Chelsea game. We will get to the Chelsea game. 2 more questions, and then we're going to move to that. Ready? So, let's get this going now. So, what do you need to see from Ange in the remaining league games? This is what I was talking to you, Luke, the other day about. Is it results? Is it performances? What's the most important thing he needs to do better in? We've got 9 games left. We can obviously win the Europa League still. What do you want to see, guys? Nigel, you start off with this one.
For me, it's all about performances. We need to build some confidence. If we're going to go into this Europa League quarterfinal, we need to build some momentum. So it's no good turning up for games, rocking up, playing badly and losing. I can take losing games. I just want to see players leave everything on the pitch. So performance-wise, we have to be a lot better. So for me, in the remaining 9 league games, win or lose, we have to start playing a lot better than we have been. So for me, it's all, obviously, if we lose 9, then it really doesn't matter how we play. But hopefully, if we play better, we're going to pick up 5 or 6 wins. So for me, it's all about playing better.
I think they come in hand, right? One hand watches the other. Yeah. You put in a performance, results tend to usually follow.
You hope so.
I've already touched on. I already kind of touched on it previously. I think the performances are the key now. Again, I'm not saying, oh, let's go and lose every single game, but we perform well and it's brilliant. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is what a lot of the Ange if you like, are saying is that we brought in this particular style. This is the style that we wanted. We haven't seen that recently. If we don't start seeing it, then it's pointless in being here, because again, it was the reason he was employed was to bring that style. So the performances for me have to improve. And even if we stumble through games and we're not playing well and we pick up the odd wins, I still think there'll be question marks. I think the performances have to improve, and that will then bring results.
And Dave, there's no excuses now, is there, Dave and Ian? There's no excuses. He's got almost all his players back now.
Yeah.
They've had a break, they've had a rest. Some of them have. Like, this team's got to start picking it up, and it's starting against Chelsea on Thursday.
Yeah, no, 100%. Look, the players are back. Before you can understand with the injuries. You lose your best players to injuries. Results and performances are going to drop off. But you would like to think when these players come back, the performances start picking up. The performances pick up, results will pick up. They usually go hand in hand. So there is no more excuses. At the end of the day, he's got to show that now that he's got his players back, he can navigate that. He can make the right decisions in terms of starting lineup, but also off the bench, but also show that he can manage that squad over a period. Like, we've got, 3 games in 7 days coming up from Thursday to Thursday to show that he can handle that squad and pick the right players for the right games and get results off the back of it. He's got a lot to prove. The performances have to pick up. The results have to pick up. His handling of the squad has to pick up. But, so for me, I think this is the last roll of the dice for him and this project moving forward. I think there's a golden opportunity here. You beat Chelsea. All of a sudden, everyone goes, you know what? We needed that heading into Southampton. You beat Southampton. All of a sudden, you're going into Frankfurt. 2 wins on the bounce.
Momentum.
Yeah, exactly. Momentum and the mood shifts. And then all of a sudden, you're going into that game going, you know what? We can win this today. And it's absolutely massive. And I think Postecoglou spoke about it in his Up the Sport interview that he done that was released last night, where he said, now it's up to us to get people to believe in what we're doing. And the only way that's going to happen is by putting points on the board. So, there's no excuses. They have to go on a little run now.
I mean,
did you see that interview, Ian, from Up the Sport?
Sorry, I missed you. Did I see?
Did you see the interview from Ange with Opta Sport? Came out, I think, yesterday or today.
I haven't. I'm sorry, no.
Okay. Basically, he said there's been mistakes. How he, at the beginning of the season, that didn't manage the squad right. with all these games. And
oh, sorry, yeah, but I mean, yeah, sorry, yeah, and it almost like pleading to keep my job and give me one more chance, and I'll put it all right. Yeah, I mean, Ange won't be oblivious to everything that's going on. More than 11 goals because the other team might get 10. Yeah. I mean, going back to your question, I think we need to see progress. We need to see that the players can actually put together 3 or 4 decent performances. I mean, part of me says, what does it matter what happens in the league? If we beat Frankfurt, we beat Lazio, whoever it is, in the semi-final and get to the final, then what the hell does it matter? But in reality, evening, Lisa, in reality, life's not like that. You need to have what I suppose the Americans in political call the big mo. You need that momentum going into games. You need to beat Chelsea, or at least give a decent account of ourselves, and maybe even get a draw against Chelsea. Beat Southampton comfortably, and then go into the Frankfurt game with lots of confidence. That's the way you build success. Someone put on the chat earlier about the best 2 nights were the 81 replay and the 84 second leg against Anderlecht. I mean, neither night ever to be forgotten. But 87 against Coventry, easy game. We're bound to win that one in the 87 Cup final. And David Pleat rested several players over the course of the 2 or 3 weeks leading up to that final. And when they played, they just didn't get going at all. So, we need the big momentum. Yes, the game's different. Lots of games, more games. Need to rotate. Need to make substitutions at the right time. Hasn't done that much up to now. But yeah, this is a big 6 weeks or so for Ange Postecoglou and Tottenham Hotspur.
I also think it's quite a big week for some big 6 weeks for the players as well. There are a lot of players like that. If they don't work out now, are they going to have futures? A new manager's coming in, going to give them another chance. So I think it is quite a big week for a lot of the, and this whole like throw away the league, which I know some people are saying is just absolutely crazy to me. If nothing else, there's fans that turn up every week. They deserve at least a committed performance. And as I say, when you then add in manager kind of playing for his future, players who should be playing for their futures as well. Hopefully it all snowballs into a good end to the season.
Yeah. I think some of these players they need to step up, don't they? They've gone missing as well. We know we blame a lot on Ange, but the players, they've got to take responsibility as well. I agree, 100%. Now, for me, and I've been banging on about this for the last few weeks now, this Europa League, building momentum, we need to start putting in some consistent performance. And this is why I was very disappointed that Ange made all those changes for the Fulham game. It just actually killed the momentum from a better result against AZ. Now, I want to see us build this momentum now leading up to the Frankfurt game. I want to see us play a full strength side against Chelsea as possible. I want us to put in a performance. We'll get onto the Chelsea game shortly. There's no way we can turn up against Frankfurt over 2 legs and go through when we're playing this poorly. We will get done in that second leg. We will get done unless we get through lucky and everything goes our way in that match. So that is very simple for me. There needs to be a massive uplift in performances. So one more question, and then we can move on to the Chelsea game. So, I think most of us are level-headed. We kind of understand the situation. Ange in, Ange out. I mean, coming 15th, 14th in the league is not good enough. And look, unless we win that Europa League, Ange may not be here next season. So who do you want as his replacement?
I generally don't have a preferred option at this moment in time. I think that there's a lot of managers that have been linked. I don't think Inzaghi is one that will come. I think if a manager is fighting at the top of Serie A to win league titles and in Champions Leagues, and then he comes to a team that is 14th at the moment, then I think there needs to be some questions asked at why he's made that jump. I think he's got 1 year left on his deal. he's competed with Inter, so I can't see that happening. The only external name away from the Premiership that I can see would be maybe a Xavi. But all of them, Xavi, I think he's a good coach. He works with young players, fits very well with what we want. No Premier League experience, not even as a player, I think is quite big. And then I've already said that I've got some other fears with the other three. Now, that's not to say that some of them don't have better stuff than Ange and everything else. It's just I didn't want Ange when he came in. But whoever comes in, I will obviously back and support. I think Iriola is probably the one that fits best with a continuation, which is what I want. I want a continuation of what we've got. Let's build on what we've got. And I think Iriola will do that in parts. But then injuries, playing, if we get into Europe, him playing twice a week, which he's never done. I think with his system, with his style, he'll get injuries. And I can see a lot of the negativities. And if you actually look, I started to look at like Bournemouth fans and what they were saying. And a lot of what we say about Postecoglou, they say about Iriola. In low blocks, he struggles. He finds it really difficult against low block. So he would fit best. Glasner seems to be one that's really started to come up recently. I need to look into him a little bit more. But yeah, I don't really have a preference at this moment.
So who is it, Luke? Just call a name just for the question's sake.
Just for this, I'm going to go Xavi.
Okay, fair enough. Dave? I know you don't like this question.
No, do you know what? Honestly, the way I see it is, right, I don't like talking about, potential managers coming in when you've still got a guy in the job. I sort of one of them. I deal with it when it comes around. But the reality is, I can sit here and give you any names you want. The reality is, look at the names we've had here since Pochettino. None of them have been able to bring their famous brand and style of football. And the reality is, they've all done well the first season, but second season, it's absolutely tailed off. So I don't really think it really matters. What I would say is I would prefer to continue playing my football, out from the back, pressing from the front, stuff like that. Throw a name out there for the name's purposes. I think Xavi Alonso, I think he's done a brilliant job at Bayer Leverkusen. If we could bring him in, I think that's one I would be willing to work, to get behind. I think absolutely brilliant. I do like Kieran McKenna at Ipswich. I don't think he's ready for that step up yet, though. I think I'd like to see him at another club before we maybe go there. But for me, yeah, maybe a Xavi Alonso. Do you know what I think it could be? I think what you could see is Postecoglou becomes available. Celtic comes straight back in for him. You could see Brendan Rodgers end up at Tottenham,
I've actually said for the last couple of weeks, I think that the whole keeping him in for another year and then going for Pochettino. Because Pochettino's contract goes in 2026.
When's that World Cup?
2026. So the end of next year. And I think if he can get another year out of Ange, because you're not going to appoint a new manager and in 1 year sack him regardless of what they do. I have a feeling that he might try and do that. I don't know why, but I just have this feeling that he might try and stick it out for another year.
Has anyone seen the United States results? I mean, is this the Pochettino that's in danger of being sacked by the United States?
Remember, Poch, it takes him a while to get his system across, doesn't it? You remember when he started for us? Yeah, it took a while, didn't it?
He got fired at Paris Saint-Germain, he got fired at Chelsea. I just think his days run. I mean, I'm not sure. Anyway, look.
Who would you
think I think it's unfortunate at Chelsea, to be fair.
I'll give you my take now, and I think therein lies the problem, that there isn't an obvious standout candidate that we think we could get. I'm actually not impressed by the candidacies of, say, Frank, even Iriola and Silva. I don't think they've done enough in the game. It's a big step up, and I don't see what they offer that won't have us having the same conversation in another 18 months. Yeah. The one manager that people have mentioned, it's not been mentioned here tonight, is Simone Inzaghi in Italy. I think that might have been more realistic if Paratici was coming back, and he looks like
Inzaghi, you mean?
To Milano. Inzaghi, yes. No, you got me confused now. No, Simone Inzaghi. Yeah?
The inner boss.
Inzaghi.
Is that...
Tomato. Let's move on.
What?
Just tomato. Different pronunciations.
The boss.
Same person, different pronunciations.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry. My Italian's not that good. I just think that, you know, he plays a sort of pragmatic 3-5-2, moves it into 4-2-3-1 and what have you. I think that's kind of what we want. If anything, one of the problems with Ange is he's too fixated on his 4-3-3. So there's no standout manager. I mean, Steve there, what does it matter? And I guess that's the cynicism with which we're all afflicted. What does it matter? It's terrible. It's a terrible view to have, Steve. But I wish you weren't right. You know, I wish I could tell you, you know, cut that negativity out. But I can understand where it comes from, and we all suffer from it. But that's who I would take if I had to pick a manager tomorrow.
Nigel.
You know who I would have. For me, he's unemployed at the moment, and I think he's a top manager. He's young, he's hungry, he plays a good mix of attacking and defensive football. I've heard a lot of fans saying that he plays really defensive football in the Champions League. I'm talking about Edin Terzic, by the way, which he did, but he got Dortmund to a final. You know, he changes his team and his tactics to different games. He doesn't have one way of playing. He has different systems. And if we're looking for a young manager, for me, he would be the one. And he's unemployed, so he's perfect for leaving. He wouldn't have to pay a lot of money out.
Look, if we're talking fantasies, I would go with someone like Inzaghi, but I just can't see it. I mean, the guy, you know, I've looked into him a bit, what he's doing at Inter Milan. He's flexible. He changes it up. You know, if you ever watch them, they're a really good side. But realistically, it's probably going to be somebody who's managing in the Premier League right now. There's a number of them that you could pick. There's quite a few of them. Arviola, I get Luke's concerned about the injuries with the high press and not having a squad. That is a little worry. But I do think Arviola will get more out of this team. He will improve players as well. But he does need good recruitment, of course. Frank, very kind of stable Premiership manager. You know, he's got good results against big teams. He has a style of play. Could he transfer that to Spurs? I'm not too sure, but I like what I see. I've seen him in action. I've seen how he talks. I've seen him, you know, when you see the behind the scenes, you know, he's in the dressing room, he's motivating the players. I like all of that. You know, that's something to admire. Silva is another one, a stable Premiership manager. Does that excite me? No, it doesn't. But again, he would get us so far and he would improve us. And then obviously Glasner's coming up a lot, hasn't it, lately? And what the job he's doing at Palace. You know, he's doing a fantastic job. You know, could he come in, play with a back three? I think we've got the team for it.
How long did they go through the shit, though? Let's not pretend like he's a flavour of the week. You know, people are only talking about him now because Palace are starting to pick up results and they're in the final.
But Dave, look at the results. Dave, you can't play that down, man.
At all. No, but before that, he wasn't winning at all. You know what I mean?
But why? But why is that?
Like, what's the difference of bringing him in here and giving him 2 years to work? You know, you've already given that to, you know, why not continue on with Ange Postecoglou at that point and see if he can come out the other end? You know, that's why he's come out the other end, because Palace didn't panic and they gave him time to come out the other end. But, you know, honestly, I find that one a strange one, considering how long Palace have been, you know, poor for, and it's only recently they've come to the fore. I find the Ollie Glasner a very strange one. You know, if people want Ange Postecoglou sacked off what we've seen this season, they're not going to take.
You've got to remember the club he's managing, Dave. It's Palace.
No, I get that to a large degree, but you know, we talk about being sick of losing. The amount of games he's lost in terms of being Crystal Palace manager. You know, you can't sack one manager for one thing and then go and pick up another manager.
He's won the Europa League for Frankfurt. He's gone in with a, you know, not a big team, and he's won a cup. He's a good manager, Dave. I think you've been a bit unfair.
Maybe.
I think that's.
I get your point. It's nothing exciting, is it? It's not a massive upgrade to, you know. This is the problem, isn't it? You know, what manager can we attract? You know, it's a problem.
That's the level we've dropped, isn't it? You've got your Jose and you've got your Conte, and now all of a sudden we're looking at, with all due respect, managers that are in the 10th and 11th positions in the Premier League. That's how far we've come away, and we were saying about why have we dropped off. If you go back to that 2019 final and you look at that team, all we've done is replace them with worse players, and then we wonder why we've regressed. virtually the whole 2019 squad starting 11, probably starts for us now. Not once or one have we been able to upgrade or get near to.
Let's be honest, it didn't work with Conte or Jose either, did it? So
yeah, because they didn't back him, did they? They did not back him with the players that they needed. They needed winners.
But that's fair, though, isn't it?
That's the same with everyone.
Are we going to
now,
back
isn't
the
it?
next manager?
It's the same with absolutely everyone. No one's been. Yeah, I know people say about the amount of money that he spent, Postecoglou and everything else. But for me, when you talk about the club signings, which we've been used to as a club now, all of them are development for the longer term. They're all for 2 or 3, 4 years down the line. So they've been spent under his regime, yes, but they've been bought for the players that are for the 2, 3 years down the line. So, and that's how we seem to do it. We just seem to half-heartedly invest, half-heartedly back, and then just fizzle out.
Right, guys, let's move on to that Chelsea game. Been a great discussion, everyone. Thank you for all of your opinions on everything, man. It was fascinating stuff, man. Big up to everyone in the chat as well for all your comments throughout the night. Great stuff. Okay, Nige, you had a little bit something to bring, didn't you, to this this Chelsea talk? Talk us through
yeah,
it.
I was just looking at obviously Chelsea currently, and I thought this was really interesting. So obviously the fans, we're not, we can see where Chelsea are in the league, but it's trying to work out how the fans are feeling, how the media is feeling about Chelsea currently. And this is their last 3 seasons, obviously current one now. But if you can look at the 22-23 season, they finished 12th, 45 points off first. In the 23-24 season, they finished 6th, 28 points off first. In this season, they're currently 4th, so 21 points off first. So they are slowly improving. But a lot of fans, just trying to find it, a lot of fans are not happy with the way the team is progressing. It says here, it's harsh, but probably pretty true. The excuses about a young team and a new project has been repeated so often that it's become acceptable to finish 6th despite the billions spent in 3 years. Does that mean finishing 5th next year would be okay, or 4th in 2 years? Standards are on the floor, as they say. Sounds a bit like Spurs, doesn't it? The odds are now against Chelsea making top 5. That should have been seen as unacceptable in the summer, and certainly should have seen as unacceptable when we were sitting 2nd at Christmas. So a lot of Chelsea fans are not happy with the way that Chelsea are currently playing. How are you guys feeling about Chelsea and what they're doing this season?
I think it's been mentioned earlier about Pochettino. I think that the groundwork that he set in that second half of the season, there was loads of Chelsea fans that could not believe that he got the sack. Towards the end of the season, they shot right up. So I would say that even though they've got a better total points to first this season, I think a lot of that groundwork was actually set by Pochettino. A lot of the young players that he had, albeit they're spending 50, 60, 70 million on the youngsters. And then the Leicester fans, there was a lot of them that were quite happy to lose their manager. So is he someone that's actually holding them back? Should they be higher up? When you look at that squad, they've got a very, very good squad. And I feel like, they just seem to have fallen away. I think the form of Cole Palmer, I think we mentioned it earlier on, that Cole Palmer is the diamond in their team. And if you've got him firing, then he's going to push you right up the table. And he's obviously not been it for a little while. He's back now, I think, against us. So no doubt probably walk off with 2 or 3 goals. And any of the other players that are in a bit of a drought, they'll be fancying to notch against us as well.
Yeah, they're hardly pulling up trees, are they, this season, Chelsea? But I mean, obviously, we've spoke about how average the league is this year. Yeah, and what do you think of Chelsea this year?
Yeah, I think they've been really ordinary, but they are going in the right direction. And I agree as well that their form seems to have dipped since Cole Palmer's form has dipped. But again, going back historically, I mean, someone actually in the chat mentioned Ken Bates and the way he used to chase managers away from the club. I can remember, Chelsea were a yo-yo club. You know, they drift until Abramovich came in. They really drifted between the old second division and the first division. Remember seeing when I was at uni in Cardiff in the late 70s, early 80s, seeing Chelsea and West Ham playing there. That's how the game has changed. And you put that, you know, where in those days, we went down. You know, we went down in 77. Anybody could go down pretty well. Anybody. Man United went down in 73 or 74. The game has changed since the big money came in, and I think there'll be a lot of supporters, you know, Chelsea supporters now who only know success. You'd have to be my age or around my age to remember when Chelsea were really a struggling football club. You know, built a stand and couldn't pay for it and went down, as did Wolves. You know, clubs, we built a £1 billion stadium. You know, Wolves and Chelsea built stands and then couldn't replace players. That's how the game has changed. And I mean, I guess from a supporter's point of view, you say, well, be careful what you wish for. I'm not saying I want Levy in. I do want new owners in some shape or form of this club, but you know, new owners does not bring you guarantees of success at all. And we know pretty well now that the Abramovich money was dirty, coming from Putin and what have you. I don't say too much more than that, other than you know, Chelsea supporters may have to get used to just being ordinary Joes like the rest of us. See how many of them stick around like we do.
Dave, what's your thoughts on Chelsea?
Look, I agree with what Luke said. I think they made a massive mistake in sacking Pochettino. I think they should have tried to keep him there, and I think, you know, you would have seen progression this season. In terms of their fans, look, I don't really care. I'm actually glad they're going through a bit of pain, actually, to be quite frank. They've had more than enough success down the years, and they absolutely hate us every chance they get. They try and piss all over us and ruin what we're trying to do. So, you know, I don't really care how their fans are feeling, but I can understand how they're feeling. You know, they've gone from watching their team, you know, compete in Europe every year, win domestic trophies, win Premier League titles, to basically becoming a Tottenham Hotspur to a large degree, where you're hoping for top four. So I can understand why they're a bit upset at the minute and stuff like that. But what I will say is, I do think they're there for the taking. We were 2-0 up at our place earlier on in the season before we absolutely threw it away. You know, this isn't the Chelsea in years gone by where you rock up to Stamford Bridge and you go, it's going to be a tough one here today. You know, you just hope to perform well. I would say is, I do think they're there for the taking this time around. And if there's any time to break that curse, I think it's now. I know we're not in the best of form, but at the end of the day, you know, you're not going to play a more weaker Chelsea side.
Nigel, was there anything else that you wanted to add on that Chelsea bit? Because you had a bit more information, didn't you? Did you want to share it?
I did, but then it was quite long and I didn't want to read it out. No, it's basically just Chris Sutton just reading about Chelsea and what he thinks their supporters think. So I will read this out quickly. Chris Sutton predicts that Chelsea fans will be frustrated under the current ownership and feeling like they are still way off the very best teams. Sutton told BBC Radio 5 Live, I think Chelsea fans feel they are certainly not going to get there this season, but they're still miles away. Remember the takeover, they spent an absolute fortune, £1 billion, and there was sort of a development idea. Lovely in theory, but for a club that has been gluttonous and greedy in terms of winning trophies over a prolonged period, they just feel that they're slightly beneath that level at the moment, and they can't quite see how they're going to join up where they can hit the top. We suspect most Chelsea fans know that the current group in this dressing room isn't experienced enough yet to win the biggest trophies in the football club. However, the Blues may only be a few key pieces away from returning to the summit. So that's basically what Sutton feels as an ex-Chelsea player.
Look, they're in the race for top four still, right? They're still in, touching distance. Will they do it? I'm not sure. I mean, their style of plan to Maresca is possession-based, isn't it? Yeah, high press. They like to have the football. Maresca likes to have players who are good on the ball, can keep the possession, move it around. They have set moves. You know, he definitely likes the cutbacks. It's similar to Guardiola a bit. Obviously, that's going to be because he was working under him. Now, Chelsea, I mean, their results. I'll get their results up.
I've just had a look. They're currently fourth, but if Newcastle win their game in hand, which would have been for the Carabao Cup, I think Newcastle go above them. So if Newcastle win that, but you've got right the way down to seventh is like one win is the difference.
Yeah, so they're in it, aren't they? So they've got something to play for. This game is important for Chelsea. You know, they're still in it. You know, they're in the Conference League, which they should win. They should win that competition. So they're out of the domestic cups. So really, the league is what they've got to put it into now to try and get as high a position as possible under Maresca's first season. Now, if we look at their results, obviously they lost away to Arsenal. They won their Conference League game. They beat Leicester, Southampton, lost to Villa, got beaten twice by Brighton, knocked them out the FA Cup and beat them also in the league. And then they got a win over West Ham. So, look, they've not been amazing, but they've been winning. They've been getting wins. I mean, you know, Luke, like you said about Palmer, he hasn't been his best like last season. Why is that? I don't know. Is this a game where we can win, in anyone's opinion, if we turn up and just basically a London derby for me is where you have to leave it all on the line. Yeah, you've got to show passion, fight, win the second balls. For me, I hate losing to Chelsea. I don't want to see a pathetic performance like we did against Fulham. And our records in London derbies under Ange is dreadful. So something needs to give.
Yeah, look, I think it's going to be a hard game to win. You know, even in years gone by when Chelsea haven't been at it, when we were going for the league title under Poch, they still turn up. They fight in these games a lot more than what we do, I would argue. It's going to be a very difficult game to go and win. But I think the squad are at a place now where they've got no excuses. They have to go and try and pull something out of the bag. They have to try and get over the line. You know, there's going to be no excuses. You know, they can't even come out and go, "Oh, well, we played well." It's got to be better. You've got to get a result here. And at the end of the day, you know, Chelsea are miles off compared to where they were for a lot of my lifetime, which was winning trophies. Yeah, they're winning games, but they're nowhere near, you know, winning trophies. And I think you know, in the last 10, 15 years, I'd argue there's no better time to go and try and beat them at their ground than now. Will we? Yeah. Different story.
Yeah, well, the record's there. I just want to say Ian's got to jump now. So I just want to say thank you, Ian, for coming on tonight.
I'll soon, mate.
Thanks for having me, Dan. And thanks to, Dave I know well, but to Nigel, Luke, been an absolute pleasure. And everybody in the chat, been some good discussion there. So, yeah, thanks a lot and hopefully see you all again soon.
People, please subscribe to Die Hards if you haven't. The link's in the chat. Good night, Ian. Take care of yourself.
All the best. Take care, guys.
Thank you. Yeah, Dave. I mean, this Chelsea, you know, we've just got a dreadful record in any manager, any season. You know, if we do lose this one, that's Ange's 4 games against Chelsea, 4 defeats, and that hasn't happened for a long time. I don't know. I really don't know, guys. Has anybody got any kind of...
It's a tough ask, isn't it? Yeah.
But what do we want? We want to see effort. We want to see a performance. We want to see us try and win that game. Chelsea are not perfect.
I think this is one of them where if we hadn't have lost so many games in the league, you'd be sitting there going, we just want to grind one out, want to get a good performance. You just want them to be solid. Don't let them walk over you. But because you've lost so many, you go, but we can't even walk away with just a narrow loss where we've played well. Do you know what I mean? You're in that situation because you've just lost so many games. But again, I'll say it for virtually every single game that we've got from now to the end of the season, a performance has to be there. The players have to want it. They have to be up for it. We have to start trying to play some better football. Otherwise, it's curtains for Ange and probably quite a few of the players as well. I'm gonna go optimistically a 2-2 draw.
Nigel, what do you reckon?
I wanna be positive and say I think we can get a result, but this is Chelsea. We never win at Stamford Bridge, or hardly ever win. And I just don't think the players. You remember that video when Poch came into the change room after Champions League win? I think it's maybe against City when it's like who knows? And I just don't think Spurs, the players, have got that in the locker. I can't see them turning up, rolling their sleeves up, and leaving everything on the pitch, sadly. So, can we get a result? Yes. Will we? Unlikely, sadly.
And do you think, guys, he's going to play a full strength team, or do you think it's going to be like, saving it for that Europa League next Thursday?
He's got to go full strength. I think he's more likely to rest against Southampton. Personally, I don't
It's
know.
It's the one afterwards where there's going to be big changes. I can't see him playing Thursday and then the Sunday game afterwards. I can't remember who we play, but that's going to be the one where he should. Yeah, the one after. So we've got Southampton this weekend, haven't we? I think it's Wolves. The Wolves game, I can see quite a few dropping out because it's not the difficulty between the Sunday and then the Thursday. It's the Thursday Sunday, especially when you're away. That's even more difficult. So, but no, I think he has to go full strength for Chelsea. The only one that Van der Ven, I think it's imperative he's fit. So I think his minutes will be managed, but that's the only one. Other than that, he should be starting all of his main big players.
Yeah, Van der Ven's got to play.
I was a bit torn on this because I was thinking earlier on, right? Not from Ange Postecoglou's point of view, but notoriously games between Tottenham and Chelsea are hard hitting. A lot of tackles flying in. And I just wonder, will it be in the back of Postecoglou's mind to leave certain players out and not take that risk, because I think you could take that risk against Southampton. I don't think you're really going to see, the challenges that you'll see flying in the Chelsea game, in the Southampton game. And I think you could definitely get away with playing full strength against Southampton and again Thursday. I just wonder, and I'm not saying this is what he should do, but I just wonder, will he have that in the back of his mind? Me personally, as a fan, go full strength. Try and get the result over the line, rotate against Southampton, and then get the guys back out there for Thursday. That's what I would do. But I just wonder, will he have in the back of his mind about the nature of a derby, players wanting to lay in on each other with our injury record, will he mix it up?
The caveat to that
go for it,
when you had the City game and then you had, who do we play? Ipswich, I think it was. He dropped players, or he rested players for the City game and everyone was up in arms going, why? Well, he could lose against Ipswich. You could argue he cannot lose against Southampton because if he loses against Southampton, regardless of Europa League, is there now a new call to say he needs to go? So I don't agree with that, exactly what you're saying. I don't agree that players should be potentially dropped for Chelsea. But if he looks at it and goes, I could get away with losing at Chelsea on the basis that we always lose there, but I can't get away with losing at Southampton. But as I say, I'd be going full strength. Other than Van der Ven, I'll give a pass on.
If we don't play the best team possible, we're in trouble. We'll get smashed.
Big trouble.
Yeah, we are. We have to play a decent team. We have to show some fight, pride. It's a derby. I don't care. I've had enough of these defeats this season. I need to see something on Thursday. Am I convinced that we will? I don't know. I'm not. I just don't think we've been playing well at all. But let's hope that changes.
Well, I think if you take off our performances in both North London derbies, you can't even bank on that. A North London derby is self-motivating, or a London derby is self-motivating for the players. And look, to be honest with you, this is the one game a year where I sort of understand Spurs fans that are expecting us to lose, because you look at our record, ever since the Premier League started in Stamford Bridge, I mean, it's absolutely horrific there. I think it's the worst out of every other team that we have against the Premier League. So it's just notoriously been a difficult place for us to go. We're cursed there. Whatever it is, the mental barrier, we just can't seem to get over it.
No, that's it. So predictions, guys, and then we're going to wrap up tonight.
4-0.
Sorry, Luke, you said 2, didn't you?
2.
I'm going to go for a narrow 2-1 defeat.
Okay. And Dave?
Look, anyone that's watched me a long time, not to trust my score predictions or believe in them, because I'm never, ever going to give you what I think, is what I think we'll achieve, but you'll never ever hear me say I think Tottenham will lose either. I just like that going into games. So I'm going to sit here and say potentially could we sneak a 2-1 win or a draw, but the reality is I know we're going to lose.
Yeah, I think it'll be a narrow defeat, but again, it's about seeing something. I need to see something on Thursday. If we don't, then it worries me for the Frankfurt matches. It really does. Okay, guys, let's wrap it up. Big up to everybody who's watched, who's got involved tonight with your comments. Thank you so much. Massive thank you to Dave for coming on. Really appreciate it. Please go and subscribe to Dave if you haven't already. Same with Luke. Big thank you to you as well, Luke. And if you haven't subscribed, Luke's just started a channel, so please go over and give him a sub. Thank you, Luke. And Nige, if you haven't subscribed to Nige, please go over to Nige's channel and subscribe to him as well. Thank you, Nige. And also Ian for coming on earlier. So thanks, everybody. Another game Thursday. What will happen? We don't. We probably know we'll probably lose. But anyway, let's hope we do something. But good night, everybody. Thank you all for watching. Take care of yourselves. And come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.